Columbus, Ohio, but they're treating it just like a fall football Saturday. Everybody ready to get their first glimpse at the defending national champions, and head coach Urban Meyer and the Buckeyes ready to hit the field after their great run to end 2014.
And the king of the SEC has fallen. Wide to the 5 and to the goal line and into the end zone. Ohio State national champions for the 8th time.
From Columbus, Ohio, on a beautiful spring afternoon, it's time for the Scarlet and the Gray to take the field at Ohio Stadium. Hi again, everybody, alongside Glenn Mason, and for the first time on BTN, former Ohio State linebacker Bobby Carpenter. I'm Kevin Kugler. We welcome you to Ohio Stadium. And Mace, I know you were here last year. What a difference it makes spring to spring for the Buckeyes.
Well, let's just reflect on last year at this time. Remember, the 2013 season didn't finish exactly the way the Buckeyes would have liked. It took Tyvis Powell to make a late-game interception against Michigan to win that game. They lost to Michigan State in the championship game. Then they lost to Clemson in the bowl game. Coming into this game, lots of questions to be answered. First of all, Braxton Miller, the quarterback, injured on the sideline. Everybody expecting he's going to be the guy. Cardell Jones was the quarterback in this game. Not many people were talking about. Just a big, raw talent. J.T. Barrett, well, you know, not going to say anything about him. Only one returning offensive lineman in Taylor Decker. Who was going to replace Carlos Hyde? Defense had been suspect the year before. Urban Meyer talked about he was going to spend every minute of last spring practice on the defensive side of the ball. Well, a lot few questions this year than last year.
Absolutely. And a lot of those questions have been answered, but the question will be, can they maintain that momentum that they had over the last 3 games? Will they be able to sustain those terrific performances? Urban Meyer did a terrific job trying to pull back of his guys who had taken a ton of reps, playing 15 games during this entire season. Very difficult, so you have to ask yourself, how many questions can you answer when you're taking the vast majority of your starters and they're resting out? Guys like Ezekiel Elliott, guys like Braxton Miller, J.T. Barrett who are injured, or a guy even like Joey Bosa as well.
Well, you mentioned Ezekiel Elliott. He's not going to be on the field today, but Urban Meyer knows what he's got in this running back.
Ezekiel Elliott, you look at him last season, a dynamic, powerful player, running all over the field, explosive speed, had a terrific last 3 games. A lot of the success that was had of last season was due to J.T. Barrett and his exceptional running ability, taking the pressure off of that quarterback position, taking a break with the spring, the injured wrist, and now time to develop some of the younger guys in Curtis Samuel.
Well, and Mace, quarterback spot's going to be a lot of attention on that in the fall. But Cardale Jones, the only one of the big 3 that's going to see action today. And what a finish he had to 2014.
What a finish. Do they call him 12 gauge? Why? He wears number 12 and he's got an arm like a shotgun. Who could have ever expected for him to perform coming down the wire and win the national championship for the Buckeyes? You talk about a dilemma. People keep asking me, okay, Coach, which quarterback would you play? Would you play Cardale Jones? Would you play Braxton Miller? Would you play J.T. Barrett? How the heck would I ever know? I've never had 3 quarterbacks like that. It's a dilemma. I guess it's a good dilemma, and Urban Meyer is the perfect coach to be able to handle that situation.
Well, Bobby, this is a decision that Urban Meyer says is going to be made midway through fall camp. Who gets the nod?
Well, it's going to be tough. Each one of the guys provides a different element to the game. You mentioned Cardale Jones, the big arm, push the ball down the field, the electric athleticism of Braxton Miller being able to run and make big plays with his feet, and then the cerebral poise of J.T. Barrett taking over in a tough situation and navigating the team through the first 12 games of the season.
Well, one of the things that you look at in this quarterback race, you've got J.T. Barrett, you've got Braxton Miller. Neither of these guys are going to play today, although J.T. Barrett will participate in a halftime quarterback competition, and put the competition in quotes, but neither of them will be on the field today. Now, defensively, a lot of people forget at the end of the season last year with the national championship, that overshadowed a Buckeye defense that was trying to find its way through the course of the year. Bobby, you played on the defensive side of the football. What do you expect this year from this Buckeye defense?
Well, this was a team that struggled in 2013 and 2012 on defense, and even at the beginning of 2014, but a lot of questions were answered with that dynamic recruiting Urban Meyer did, bringing in a guy like Joey Bosa, having a strong presence up front, being able to stop the run, attack the passer. Von Bell at the the safety position, another one of those guys in that class, a dynamic playmaker. And then lastly, Darren Lee, a guy recruited from Columbus, a younger player, dynamic, didn't understand what they had, a safety hybrid. You look at what he's able to do in space and make those big dynamic plays.
Mace, let's talk about some guys to keep an eye on today. And one of the guys that we're really going to keep an eye on, as long as he's out there, is the explosive Jalen Marshall. That is, if we can catch up with him, to keep an eye on him.
Well, you know, Jalen Marshall was an important ingredient a year ago when Dontre Wilson went down injured. He provided that vertical stretch and horizontal stretch to let the vertical go. You know, he's an exceptional athlete. He was a high school quarterback. Now he's going to try him out wide receiver, trying to replace that downtown speed that Devin Smith had. But this guy will be an integral part of the offense.
Well, the rushing yardage last year for Jalen Marshall, he was so big as a receiver and, of course, in the return game. And with Jalen Marshall moving to the outside, Bobby, that's opened up some space in the spring for Curtis Samuel.
Absolutely. It's an embarrassment of riches for this Ohio State offense. And, you know, with Ezekiel Elliott playing so well, Curtis Samuel, a highly recruited guy, how do you get him on the field? Well, you've got to take your slot back. You got to move him out wide in Jalen Marshall, and you got to try to find a way to get Curtis Samuel out there. He's a dynamic, explosive playmaker, has the ability to take the distance on any touch. They got to get him on the field, so now they're trying him out wide.
58 carries, 383 yards last year. Curtis Samuel's numbers look to go up this year. Urban Meyer's got big plans for this 2015 season. He goes into the year as defending national champions after finishing the regular season 11-1. Fourth in the playoff poll as Big Ten champions. But of course, all that matters is what happened in the playoffs. They beat Alabama and then defeated Oregon to win the first college football playoff national championship. The spring game from Columbus next on BTN. Spring football on BTN is brought to you by Amway, the proud sponsor of the Amway Coaches Bowl, powered by USA Today and the AFCA Coaches Trophy. Ohio Stadium in Columbus, Ohio, where the scarlet and the gray getting set to close out spring football 2015 for the defending national champions. Getting ready to start the circle drill. This is one of the more popular elements of spring ball. It's everybody a little fired up here at Ohio Stadium. Urban Meyer in the middle.
I wanted to get Carpenter to go down there, but he said he'd only go if I'd go, and I'm not going down there.
Well, the irony of this is the coaches talk about not wanting to get anybody injured during spring ball. I don't know if circle drill really fits in that mold.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is one that could create some issues from time to time, but
well,
it's a crowd favorite and it's a team favorite, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, you know, from a coaching standpoint, you always think if you put two guys out there with all their teammates watching, Bobby, if you're not going to compete in that setting, you're not going to compete.
Well, absolutely. And the fact that today you have a beautiful day in Columbus, Ohio, and you know, I believe they sold almost 80,000 tickets as of this morning, not including students, not including walk-ups. You've got your teammates, you've got the students, you've got a great day. This is going to be a nice little pressure and an added intensity in the stadium this evening.
You know what the players really like is when all of a sudden the coach says, put two quarterbacks out there. That's right. Isn't that what, as a player, you really like?
Oh, you love the quarterbacks, the specialists, the DBs, receivers, guys who really don't get to mix it up and be nasty all the time. Just see what they have. See what type of toughness they've got out there.
Right now you've got Tommy Shutt working against Billy Price. Tommy Shutt, a guy who's made some noise during the course of spring practice.
Well, Billy Price, another guy that came in, was a first-year starter last year, did not play well to start the season, as that whole offensive line didn't against Virginia Tech. Really stepped up throughout the course of the season, and they're expecting big things from him in his second year as a starter.
Joshua Perry and Nick Vanette, tight end versus linebacker.
And the defensive guy cheating. He jumped. Defensive guys are like that, Bobby. He jumped the count there.
Well, absolutely. They got to get every advantage they can out there. But those are two seniors. You mentioned Nick Vanette, a senior, fifth-year tight end. Josh Perry, fourth-year starter. Two local Columbus guys who have really made a name for themselves on this team over the last couple seasons.
And how about this guy right here?
Darren Lee.
Man.
Mr. Explosive right there.
Briante Dunn trying to get the best
high school quarterback out of New Albany, and the way that he came on, not to just become a star of that defense. Some guys make plays, some guys don't. Number 43 makes a lot of plays.
Absolutely. You know how difficult it can be, Glenn, to project guys who play safety in high school, guys who play quarterback. Can he play linebacker? Is he tough enough? Will he understand the reads and the defense? I think Darren Lee put a lot of those questions to rest by the end of last season.
And with all the spread offenses that are out there, that's the type of athlete you really need to recruit to be able to defend spread offenses.
Absolutely. Back 10 years ago, your Sam linebacker was 250 pounds, down there, smashing on a tight end all day. Now they have to be able to walk out over a number 2 receiver, be able to play in space, and Darren Lee gives this defense the flexibility to where they don't have to sub a lot. They don't use a ton of nickel work because he's such a dynamic athlete. There's a lot of receivers that he can cover up and down the field.
All right, now the real question everybody wants to know as they watch the circle drill is, did Bobby Carpenter ever get beaten in a circle drill?
Oh, gosh, I've been hitting the head a lot. I want to say that I probably never did.
You forgot all the ones where you might have? That makes sense. That makes sense.
That's probably the way to do it. We used to get in there and get a little bit nasty with Coach Tressel. A lot of coaches like to do this, even in a limited setting, because it really gets to determine how tough guys are. Especially sometimes they'll even set it up where it's defensive on defensive guy or offensive on offensive guy. And pit guys who are friends against each other, maybe play the same position, just to kind of get those competitive juices flowing.
Marcellus Jones out there with Donovan Munger.
Marcellus Jones is a freshman going to be a sophomore, I believe, out of Cleveland Glenville. A good player, highly touted coming in, very good athlete. He's one of those young offensive linemen who they had a bunch of young guys start last year, but they really don't have a lot of experience depth now behind them. So they're expecting those guys this spring to develop and grow, and then obviously carry this throughout the summer and develop in the fall.
Yeah, big for Marcellus. This is his second spring. He was an early enrollee a year ago and got the chance to participate in spring ball last year. So a chance to now for the second time through, a little more comfortable, knows what's going on, has had a year plus in the weight room and at the training table.
Here we go, get a little defensive back, Eli Apple, I believe, out there, and said Curtis Samuel, I believe, number 4, battling out some smaller guys, getting tough, seeing what they have. And Eli Apple's a guy who, last season coming in, battling with Garyon Conley to start the season, trying to figure out who was the opposite cornerback going to be of him, and he stepped up and played terrific last year. Had some struggles early on, but a big play guy, highly recruited guy. And Glenn, you'll love those 6'1" corners out there that can cover a receiver.
A highly recruited guy to Voorhees, New Jersey, this great state of New Jersey. You ever been to New Jersey?
Hey, my parents used to live in Ramsey back then. They've got some good football, and with the addition of Larry Johnson over from Penn State, he's done a great job recruiting that Eastern Seaboard and bringing guys in from there.
Bobby, you mentioned Glenville High School, and I was just thinking, can there be a high school in the country that in recent memory has produced more quality players, not only for the Ohio State Buckeyes, but other teams around the Big Ten? Really a quality program out there that Ken Gidget Sr. has really developed.
Absolutely, and he does a great job up there taking the kids of Cleveland and developing them. I used to try to count how many guys are on the Ohio State roster from Cleveland Glenville. I gave that up. It's too high. Oh, and here we go. Speaking of Glenville, Cardell Jones going against Stephen Collier. And another Glenville guy, Cardell Jones, who came in and was developed. Nice little pads popping for the quarterbacks there.
See, I told you they like when they put the quarterbacks in there. And the quarterbacks, let me tell you, they like to get in there. They really do, because they want to be, a part of the team as much as they possibly can. No special treatment.
Well, Urban Meyer knows what gets his team fired up, and that circle drill is certainly one of those that does. And, of course, the urban legend for Urban Meyer starting off red hot at Bowling Green, then moving on to Utah, the 2005 Fiesta Bowl champions, 2 national titles in his tenure with the Florida Gators. Then after he found out broadcasting wasn't cut out for anyone, really, Ohio State is where he lands, and the 2014 national champions. He's had an impressive career so far, and he ended last year by raising the AFCA Coaches Trophy presented by Amway. For more on what this season holds, let's send it down to Lisa Byington, who's standing by with Urban Meyer.
All right, coming off that national title run, Coach, what did that excitement bring to the spring season?
Oh, a lot of responsibility, and I think it's hard to let go of something, and I'm not asking to let go, but it's time to move on, move forward, and with all the accolades, we're going to go see a president, you got range, you got all this. It's time to get going, and there's some we lost Mike Bennett, lost Evan Smith, lost some players. Someone's got to step up.
We won't see a lot of starters here today. We know that. We will see Cardale Jones. How has he improved in the few practices he's had here this spring?
He's doing good. And this is all his time. This is his time to get better and better. And the other two quarterbacks, you got to take it one day at a time. Braxton's getting healthy. JT's getting healthy. But Cardale's getting a ton of reps.
Give the fans who are watching here today something to get excited about, something to keep their eye on here today.
The offensive skill, I have to find out who can do it in the show. And that's going to be Paris Campbell, Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown. Devin Smith's gone. Who's going to be that guy that knocks the top off the coverage? That's a big part of what I need to find out today.
One last thing, 75-degree weather and sunny. What can you say for this crowd that turned out here today?
They're the best. We're very appreciative. And I don't like spring games, but I like spring games in front of people. And I want to stay healthy, see who can execute in front of a big crowd and get out of here.
All right. Thank you for the time. Guys.
All right, thank you very much. Every coach has that mantra. I don't want to see anybody get hurt, and I want to get out of here without injuries. But it is something to play in front of a crowd like this for a spring game, piling into Ohio Stadium to watch the final appearance in the spring season 2015 before they hit the field September 7th at Virginia Tech. And the schedule ends on a high note as well. Look at the ending of this schedule. Michigan State, and then, of course, the annual matchup with the Michigan Wolverines.
Well, there's be a lot of football they play, but you got to think, I know those Ohio State Buckeyes, Bobby, they look at that Virginia Tech, it's kind of payback, right? Going down to Blacksburg, you got us last year, you're not going to get us this year.
And I believe that's going to be on the Monday night there. Labor Day, big game, big scene. And if there's a team that, if I'm Virginia Tech, I wouldn't want to be playing after how they finished and what happened here in this stadium in early September. I'd say it's going to be the Virginia Tech Hokies. This team is going to be fired up. There will be no extra motivation needed. And then obviously finishing, with Michigan State, the other team in the Big Ten East that should contend, obviously, to try to come out, possibly make the college football playoff. And then, Glenn, as you know, the rivalry game finishing up against Jim Harbaugh this year up in Ann Arbor.
I think last time Jim Harbaugh was in this stadium, he guaranteed a victory, and they're able to win, but that's added something to this rivalry.
Kickoff coming up, the Scarlet and the Gray, Spring Football 2015 from Columbus, Ohio. Urban Meyer says he doesn't like spring games, but he likes the weather better than he had that one with the snow falling. No snow here today. Perfect football weather. Ohio State wrapping up spring ball on BTN. And the Scarlet and Gray taking the field as we get set for spring football 2015. The circle drill done. Coach Meyer got the chance to talk to Lisa Byington, which I believe he said was the highlight of the spring game.
Well, why wouldn't that be the highlight? Talking to Lisa, sideline reporter, best in the business. We've got a renewed relationship. We're going to be very friendly this year. You heard Urban talk before about he doesn't like spring games. And when he's talking, he'd love to take his team out here in front of this crowd, which is spectacular, and see the young guys compete. But as this game goes on, his number one objectively, get out of this game without any injuries. All coaches think about that. They want a good, hard-fought, clean-hitting contest with no injuries.
Well, and then also you look at this, the spring game as much as for the fans as anybody. And Urban Meyer understands the unique relationship that Ohio State has with its alumni, Columbus, the student body. That's why he's adding a couple other things to spice it up. You got the fastest Buckeye quarterback skills challenge at halftime. It's turned into as much as an event and a show as it is actually a spring game.
Well, Bobby, coming to the stadium today, I was really impressed, obviously, by the magnitude of the crowd, but how many people had their kids with them? Future Buckeye students. What a great way to showcase the Ohio State University and their campus in an event like this.
Well, and also, this is a big recruiting day. You want to get some of those sophomores, juniors, and some of the guys that have signed, get them in here. And there's no better way to get a guy to fall in love with your school than you can showcase the fact that they've drawn almost 100,000 people for a spring game.
Yeah, the Big Ten has done awfully well as far as attendance at spring games goes. So far in the nation, Nebraska had the highest total in the spring game. Ohio State may be knocking the Huskers off the perch. Nebraska had upwards of 76,000. This one's, I believe, going to become the new #1 nationally as far as attendance in a spring game. Well, the 3-quarterback race is not something that these folks are going to get to see decided in this spring game. Obviously, JT Barrett, Braxton Miller not going to play today. We know Cardale Jones will play. You also notice he's wearing the black jersey with the white numerals. that is going to be hands-off.
Yeah,
Cardale Jones.
don't go near him. If you want to get in trouble with the head football coach, go near that quarterback. Don't touch him. Don't even look crosswise at him.
Absolutely, you don't want to touch that guy, but they do have two other guys, so if I'm a defensive guy, I might try to get in there a little bit.
Everybody asks the question, you know, as you travel around, they want to know who the quarterback's going to be. When you really sit down and think about how Urban Meyer's going to attempt to handle this situation, it gives you a headache.
Absolutely, and it's something that, you know, he just got the new contract. That's why he's getting paid all the money. You know, not necessarily just to develop guys, but to make difficult decisions to which you can't please all three of them. There's going to be guys in the locker room that have loyalties to one or the other, and to be able to balance the situation through the summer and into fall is going to be really test Urban Meyer's resolve.
Now this team, certainly whichever quarterback gets the nod, is going to have a bevy of offensive weapons to distribute the football to, whether it be Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield, whether it be any number of the H-backs, slot backs, wide receivers that are going to be out there come the fall. And it's going to be very interesting. You heard Urban Meyer talk with Lisa about we need to see somebody who can take the top off. That's one thing they're really looking for today.
Yeah, that's why they moved Jalen Marshall outside. He's got to be able to beat people downtown like Devin Smith did.
Well, and there's two guys, Paris Campbell and Terry McLaurin, both young guys, freshmen who haven't played a lot, but very, very fast, have the ability to be a topper on the offensive side of the ball.
We are underway, and the scarlet and gray for the 2015 spring game as Cardale Jones tries the air and Curtis Samuel, and he comes up incomplete. Alongside Glenn Mason with former Buckeye Bobby Carpenter and Lisa Byington on the field, I'm Kevin Kugler. 75 degrees, mostly sunny skies, very light breezes. In other words, the absolute perfect day for college football.
And a big crowd. The only empty seats you see here are really in the cheap seats, and there's not many of them.
Well, as you notice, they wasted no time with Curtis Samuel trying to test him down the field in that slot position, running a play that they ran with Jalen Marshall so much down the stretch of last season, that deep over route to really try to put some pressure on the safety and utilize the speed and athleticism.
Noah Brown on the receiving end of that Cardale Jones pass. This is a guy that Zach Smith, wide receivers coach, said has had as good a spring as anybody, as anybody could have had. Noah Brown, one of those guys that you look for to maybe be the guy who takes the top off the defense a little bit.
Well, you look at Noah Brown coming in. He was a little bit bigger, a heavier receiver. They had explored with him playing in the H-back position. He's leaned down a little bit. Maybe they move him out wide, and he becomes that deep threat. Great possession guy so far. And I believe there was a play against Alabama where he was in for Jalen Marshall. Urban Meyer said he didn't even know he was supposed to be in the game. On the field, they handed him the ball. They made a little play, but an interesting time for him as well.
Fourth down. Jones will scramble, and Jones touched up just across the marker. He's got the first down at the 46-yard line, and then a little contact afterwards from Von Bell and Darren Lee.
There's nothing more frustrating as a defensive player than you have a quarterback scrambling, and then you can't even get a chance to hit him at the end of the play. If you're at least going to take the risk to run, these defensive guys would like to get a little bit in at the end.
Yeah, except he's 6'5", 250. Don't forget that, baby.
You don't need to tell Von Bell that. He's fired up.
You're going to see the starters, so to speak, at least the ones that are able to play for the first couple of series, as Curtis Samuel drops that one at the 35-yard line. They're going to thud, essentially, which means no taken to the ground, no contact per se, but Urban Meyer wanted the starters to be out there.
Yeah, he should have caught that ball, and I'm sure Urban Meyer will remind him of that. But needless to say, there's a real big pass emphasis so far today.
Well, they don't have a ton of running backs, and when they're moving guys around positions, Glenn, they want to see what these guys have. And, you know, the fact that they moved Curtis Samuel at H-back, really trying to explore him, utilize his speed on that deep over route, something he's ran twice in the first 5 or 6 plays.
And Cardale Jones is sacked at the 41-yard line. Little hand on the shoulder of Cardale Jones, and when you've got the no contact jersey, any contact means a sack. Joey Bosa got it.
The Buckeyes have really been limited in the offensive line, and they're going to be good in the offensive line. They were great last year, and they'll be really good again this year, but they've got some guys banged up, and they just don't have the depth they need in the offensive line for spring practice.
Especially Joey Bosa. I mean, maybe he just got a hand on him, but if you see how big those mitts are and the size of his arms, he's a guy that can tear down someone that's 250 pounds with maybe just one arm.
False start, perhaps aware of Joey Bosa's presence on the edge, a little early movement.
And When you have a guy that has given you 13.5 sacks last season as a sophomore, we're playing upwards of 90% of the defensive snaps. Very impressive defensive end. Guy that has NFL potential written all over him. A probable first-round pick, and people are talking about him possibly being even a top 10 pick as a defensive end pass rushing specialist.
What about the rest of that defensive line? Adolphus Washington moving back over again with the Michael Bennett departure to the next level. As that one aired out down the sidelines, and Corey Smith with a big play, and it'll be first down and goal for the Gray team. Well, they'll mark him out at the 12, so it'll be first down at the 12-yard line. But what about this play to Corey Smith?
Well, you know, it's hard as a coach to coach both sides of the ball one time. It's impossible. So you like the offense, but you don't like the defense. Eli Apple, you got to get your hands on that guy. You can't let him release outside free like that.
Absolutely, but I think Urban Meyer is refreshed to see Corey Smith start to build upon some of his big plays and see what he did last year step up in the spring game.
And Jalen Marshall, the most versatile offensive player for the Buckeyes, finds the end zone. So the Gray squad on the board first.
Well, as you know, they talk, you've got so much talent there. I mean, every place you look on the Buckeyes, quarterback, running back, receivers, inside, outside. It's a defensive nightmare for a defensive coordinator, this type of offense.
It really is. And they're talking about Jalen Marshall, scoring the touchdown there. And you bring up the quarterback battle. He was the guy that was getting some Wildcat reps, played quarterback at Middletown High School, home of Chris Carter. Very skilled athletic player, and it's good to see them trying to get him in the ball, get the ball in his hands in space early to see what he's able to do with it.
A little miscommunication there on the two-point tries. Cardale Jones was looking for Noah Brown. Cardale threw it to the corner. Brown had cut off his route, but on that first possession, Cardale Jones 3 for 6, 66 yards and a touchdown.
You know, you heard Urban Meyer talk about, I got to see the guys in the big stage. One of the guys he talked about, Noah Brown. How about a wide receiver playing outside who's 6'2", 222 pounds from Sparta, New Jersey? Wide receiver.
Glenn, you're going to keep going to those New Jersey guys all day. I feel like they're drawing your eyes everywhere.
Going to try the two-pointer again, and that's deflected and incomplete. Second time, not a charm for Ohio State as Raekwon McMillan got in there to break it up.
Raekwon McMillan, a guy that they love to see out here. You know, freshman last year, played a lot early on, almost gets his hands on a pick right there, had an interception as a freshman, and he's really going to be the leader and focal point of that defense, even though he's only a true sophomore.
Eli Apple on there as well. Darren Lee's been calling Raekwon McMillan the chosen one all camp long. Taking over in the middle of that linebacking core. Third time through the hands of Jalen Marshall. That's the beauty of spring ball. I don't believe the rules of college football would allow Urban Meyer to continue to try a two-point conversion during the course of a fall game.
Probably not, but you know the thing about it, as a coach in spring practice, running plays, if you can get situational snaps, they may need a two-point play next year to beat Virginia Tech in the opening game. Why not practice it right here?
Well, not only that, there are certain situations that will stick with a coach where you possibly weren't successful the year before. You look at the Sugar Bowl against Alabama, 2 times had the ball in the first quarter inside the 5-yard line, came away with only 6 points and 2 field goals. So that's obviously something that Urban Meyer is focusing on today.
Nice work from Gary on Conley here. Got up there with the right hand and batted it away.
And what you never know, you saw how many times they went to the fade down there. Maybe, perhaps, Urban Meyer thought our defense needs to work at defending the fade, because Urban Meyer, yeah, he's an offensive guy, but he's not an offensive coach. He is the head coach, offense, defense, the whole ball of wax. He sees the big picture.
Absolutely, and low red zone is a huge area of emphasis for every coach. You need to be able to get touchdowns when you get inside the 10-yard line. And if you're a defensive coordinator, if you can hold those teams to field goals, those start to add up, and that's something the Ohio State defense did fairly well last year. Gary on Conley, the new starter apparent, trying to lobby for that defensive back position there, making a nice play on Noah Brown.
Stephen Collier, his first toss is complete. Jeff Green on the receiving end at the 39-yard line. And Stephen Collier, the freshman out of Leesburg, Georgia, who was a redshirt a year ago, came in for spring last year. But when you're the 4th or 5th quarterback hard to get some snaps. He's going to get plenty of snaps today.
Exactly. How do you feel if you're the fourth guy? We're talking in the pregame. We have the try screen. We're talking about 3 quarterbacks. There's another guy on the roster here as well trying to lobby for time. And this is a chance for him that probably not this year will he get some action, but if he wants to play at Ohio State, he's going to need to have a strong showing today and give the coaches something to believe in.
Well, you make a good point there, Bobby. This doesn't just apply to the quarterback. You know, if you're a veteran player, you always want to go out and practice and get better, granted. But if you're a young guy, this opportunity today shows the coaches, hey, I can play. And that's the best thing. Go out there and make some plays, catch some guys' attention. Film doesn't lie. In this setting, you can earn yourself some playing time playing well in a game like this.
Absolutely, and it gives him a chance. He's going against a very good defense, albeit it's younger players. Just saw an interception right there. Nick Connor, early enrollee out of Dublin, Scioto linebacker, coming in here. They've got a ton of wealth at linebackers, but Luke Fickell loves his production early. He's a guy, 4-star recruit, coming in. You know, Glenn, those guys, he's just going to prom here coming up soon. He should still be in high school.
Yeah.
He was looking for Joe Ramstetter, and it was tipped into the hands of the freshman Nick Connor, and a timeout in Columbus. The Scarlet and the Gray in the spring game for 2015. Ohio Stadium in Columbus, Ohio. You see the score. Now, you've been watching this for the last few minutes, and you're saying, oh, wait a minute, I saw Jalen Marshall go into the end zone with the ball tucked under his arm. That should be a touchdown. Well, it's not right now. No score in this game. 7-18 in the spring game remaining in the first quarter. Kevin Kugler alongside Glenn Mason, Bobby Carpenter. We have Lisa Byington on the field. Our entire BTN crew's put in a busy day with lacrosse prior to this at Ohio Stadium.
Did the commissioner overrule the touchdown? I'm going to tell you, over-under today, 100,000 people. Over-under.
I'm going to take the over. I thought 90 would show up, but it's really filling up in the corners there, Glenn.
I'm with you, over.
Beautiful day, all these students. There's probably still a couple trickling in.
Cardale Jones back to work, and Bosa got to him again as he got rid of that football. Joey Bosa, are they giving him credit for a sack or an incompletion? It will be an incomplete pass. Joey was getting ready to shrug the shoulders and do the sack shrug, but no sack that time.
It was a little bit more than a two-hand touch as well, and you see these guys get ultra competitive in there. I think Joey Bosa is one player on defense that's probably earned enough leeway to be a little more aggressive with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, but I've seen Joey Bosa hit opposing quarterbacks. As far as he's concerned, that was two-hand touch.
Absolutely. It's great to see Joey Bosa working against Taylor Decker. They're two very good players, all Big Ten performers, all American caliber guys this season. And watch them go head-to-head, getting some good work in today.
Briante Dunn with a good gain, finished off about a yard shy of the first down.
You know, it was shocking for me to talk about Joey Bosa. His uncle, Eric Kumro, was a great player here. Just turned 50 years old. I couldn't believe it. I thought he was about 30.
What's even
50.
unbelievable, Joey Bosa has a younger brother that's being recruited nationally as well. I know that they would love to get their hands on him up here and are hopefully using Joey for a little bit of that influence.
And Cardale is sacked by Adolphus Washington. The big man going to work and getting the sack, sliding over from the nose to the other defensive tackle spot this year. And it's a guy who's got some big expectations, but Bobby, as you look at the rest of that defensive line, Bosa and Washington aside, how do you see it shaping up?
Well, it's going to be difficult because they've got some guys. They've got Tracy Sprinkle in there, Tommy Shutt, two guys that they've been looking at on the interior. What's really interesting, though, is on the outside, Jalen Holmes, Sam Hubbard, two young defensive ends, very talented, long, athletic guys, but very inexperienced, so I know they want to try to get them some work today and see what they can do.
I know they're not playing today, but Tyquan Lewis and Joel Hale are two guys that figure to factor into the fall, don't they?
Absolutely. Those are guys that they're going to need to play to have depth, and this team got away with last year playing about 6 defensive linemen, and especially during the end of the season there, those last 3 games, rolling 6 guys on a consistent basis. They got lucky there weren't any injuries. They've got very talented guys that can play tired, but they're going to need to develop a nice 8-man rotation.
You know, if I had to bet, Tommy Shutt will have a good year. He's a guy that was a highly recruited guy. He's been here, he's played. He's really paid his dues. He's hung in there, he's worked hard. You talk about attitude and toughness. A lot of times they get to their last campaign and they really shine.
Absolutely, and he's a guy that may not be giving you those big, gaudy stat numbers in the middle, but he's a guy that can come in there, hold the point at the nose, and you understand as a linebacker how important that is to have a defensive lineman that can hold up the blockers and give your guys a chance to run.
Darius Slade getting to Collier and providing the hit. Stephen Collier going down. And that offensive line is makeshift right now. You're missing a lot of guys, or not seeing a lot of guys who will see action in the fall in that line at this point in the spring game.
Well, first of all, Jacoby Bourne, he's out. And an undersized center by today's standards who really performed well. So he's out, so F-line has to go to center, and that messes up your whole rotation.
Nice tip by Nick Connor, the freshman that we were talking about earlier, the early enrollee. And he's one of those interesting guys that was a highly touted recruit at the end of his high school career, but early on, when a lot of these guys get the accolades, he wasn't getting the accolades. He had to prove himself in an Ohio State camp just to say, I'm ready and I'm able to play at this level.
And he's a guy that's kind of a similar story a little bit to Darren Lee. He's a local kid from Columbus, big Ohio State Buckeye fan, and he gets to camp, you see something you like about him, and he's proven himself today, and he's really been doing it all spring ball as well.
Third down and 18, and another deflection, and the pass incomplete, and that pressure coming this time from Sam Hubbard. Another one of those young defensive ends that figure to factor in the rotation this year.
Well, we had the lacrosse game before this. Sam Hubbard's a guy in high school, played safety, played lacrosse, weighed about 210, 215 pounds, 6'5", comes in, plays linebacker, about 240, move him to tight end, move him at defensive end. All of a sudden now after a winter, he's 260 pounds almost, and keeps that same athleticism, and you'll love to see that as a coach.
Yeah, he was a guy from Cincinnati Moeller that I think Urban Meyer saw him in gym class, or saw him running around playing bombardment, and something. Who is this guy?
Cameron Johnston's punt. Jalen Marshall back to receive. And the fair catch bobbled by Marshall and recovered by the Scarlet at the 24-yard line. Let's check in downstairs. Lisa Byington standing by with one of the architects of Ohio State.
Yeah, Athletics Director Gene Smith, you were looking around here with me to see this crowd capacity. It seemed like this even went above your expectations here for today.
Yeah, it did. We opened up the day at 79,000, a little over 79,000, and that excluded the students. And look at the student section, which sits over 19,600. I think we're done pretty good today.
The national championship helps with that. You're in a unique situation. You won a national championship as a player at Notre Dame, then as an assistant at Notre Dame, now as an athletic director here at Ohio State. What makes this one special?
Well, one, because this was the last one, but just to see these young men grow and develop from the time they're freshmen and sophomores, and the senior class that we were blessed to have, this junior class, special group of guys, and that's accepted some really talented young puppies, to see them go over the adversity that they dealt with. Just a magical year, and it was the first college football playoff, so we'll always be one of the first, so that was cool.
Of course, you extended Coach Meyer's contract to 2020. You quantified in money and numbers what he means. Quantify in words what Urban Meyer means to Ohio State.
The first and foremost, he does a great job with the young men, focusing on developing them individually, helping them go from boys to men. And that's the most important thing, the development of the total student athlete. Our graduation success rate is at 78%, the highest it's ever been. So that's the most important thing we focus on. And then obviously he recruits great character and great talent so that we have an opportunity to win. He's an Ohioan. He's perfect for the Ohio State University, he and his family. So we needed to make sure that he had security and comfort in being here.
A great time to be a Buckeye. Gene, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa.
Guys, back up to you.
All right, Lisa, thank you very much. Cardale Jones going back deep again to Noah Brown. The pass incomplete. Tried Curtis Samuel a moment ago. Garyon Conley out there on the coverage.
Bobby, you can see why they call him 12 gauge. The last two passes that Cardale Jones, it's a flick of the wrist and it goes 50 yards.
Yeah, he's throwing them deep down the field, and you see Curtis Samuel, they wasted no time getting him in there, challenging Von Bell, a very talented safety, very fast player. Curtis appeared to have a couple steps just a bit outside of his grasp, but you'll love to see a guy, position change, come in, trying to have an impact on the game early.
Conley's been tested a couple of times early, and he's so far been up to the challenge. We saw him in one of those two-point conversion tries, deflect one away in the end zone. A swing past Briante Dunn. Able to step through one tackle, and Briante Dunn getting to the outside, and a good gain out to the 42-yard line.
Well, Briante Dunn's a guy that Urban Meyer would like to see develop a little bit as a running back, and getting him the ball in space, seeing what he can do. We've got a lot of talented players here, but he's a senior from Clanton Glen Oak High School. Put in his time, done it on special teams. You know, I think that they would like to see him have some success in senior season.
And he's had a good spring.
Yes.
I mean, he's worked hard, and those guys that put their time in and wait their time to play with a great attitude, normally last campaign, everything works out fine.
It's tough to sell that to guys, though, nowadays. Everybody wants to play right away early, be that big successful player.
Adolphus Washington touching up Cardale Jones before he got to the first down marker. Some pretty good speed we've seen from Washington, chasing down from behind on a play earlier, and they're able to react and get the touch. A favorable spot, however, and a first down.
Well, what you love to do as a coach is if you can take a guy from a more athletic position. Adolphus Washington used to play defensive end. You put some weight on him. Now you slide him down inside. You hope he keeps a lot of that athleticism, which he has. Now he's got a mismatch going against an offensive guard. Adolphus Washington, I expect big things from him this season.
Take good big players and keep moving closer to the ball, and you'll play good defense.
Absolutely. You look at what they did with Darren Lee. Very similar situation, Sam Hubbard. They're just trying to get more and more athletes as close as they can to the line of scrimmage.
Bobby, one of the things that I'll be interested to watch this year, we have a new offensive coordinator here at Ohio State. Tom Herman's gone on to Houston. Ed Werner's done a fabulous job with that offensive line. Will now be the coordinator, but it's a different deal coordinating from coaching the offensive line than coaching the quarterbacks.
Absolutely. As you see Cardale taking a big shot down the field. Jalen Marshall working out wide, something we were hoping to see today going against Eli Apple. And it's tough. Jalen Marshall, not the tallest guy in the world. That's why he didn't get a lot of looks as a quarterback coming out of Middletown. Going up against Eli Apple, the 6'1" defensive back.
The interior pressure being held off for the most part. Good job by the offensive line, and a little extra conversation between Decker and Washington.
Well, and if you look out there, now they have Jalen Holmes in there, Ja'Shawn Cornell on the edge, Adolphus Washington still in there in the middle, but trying to get some of these younger defensive linemen in to see what they're really able to do.
Yeah, Ja'Shawn Cornell, he comes from my neck of the woods. He's from Cretin-Durham up there in St. Paul, early Roley. Really a highly recruited guy.
And looking good early, very talented.
Quick toss for Jones. Nice catch by Briante Dunn right in front of Darren Lee. And Bobby, you had the chance, obviously, to play in many a spring game here at Ohio State. Was it something you looked forward to, or did you look forward to it being over?
Well, I guess it's different as your age goes on. Early on, we've talked about it. You're a young player. Whether you're battling for a starting job or not, you want to make sure the coaches know that they can trust you in a spring game. Because if they can't trust you in the spring game, they're not going to put you in the fall. But then as you transition on to your senior year, you're just ready to be done with this thing. Get home tonight, relax, get out a barbecue, and enjoy the rest of your senior season.
See, I used to star in the spring games. I want you guys to know that. And the reason I say that, that's the only time I got to play here at Ohio State was during the spring. And I was one of those expendable guys. So, you know, Urban Meyer doesn't want to get guys hurt. Neither did Woody Hayes. So Jim Stillwagon and those guys, they had the day off, and I got to play all afternoon.
How about that catch from Noah Brown?
Talked about young guys wanting to step up, make a play. If ball thrown behind him, reaches back with one hand, snags it. Got very good hands, very great body control, and I think that's a testament to him working hard in the weight room, losing some weight, and now showing off that newfound athleticism.
First down from the 35. Jones with the fake, and it's intercepted. Picked off by Tyvis Powell, and Tyvis Powell trying to find some running room before Cardale Jones knocks him out of bounds. Now, you know what the defensive guy is going to say? Wait a minute, I can't hit you, but you can hit me? That's not fair.
How does that work? He has a black jersey on, and all of a sudden he comes out of nowhere. Cardale Jones isn't like being hit by a guy that's 5'10", 160. He's 255 pounds and 6'5".
Yeah.
You saw him try the double move there, and I believe they're trying to hit Nick Vanette up the sideline. Tyvis Powell, guy who's played a lot of football, played some nickelback. His redshirt freshman year, started at safety last season, looking very good. Obviously staying contained, staying at home there and making the play.
Yeah, he showed his experience here. He baited him right in. You know, like, hey, you think he's open? Not so fast.
Well, remember this, too. Cardale Jones, as well as he looked last season, he only started 3 games. he still has learning. There's still a growth process for him, and you always love to see that. But you said Tyvis Powell's played a lot of football and just hung it out to dry right there.
Now, this is the one thing you didn't want to see is an injury in the spring game, and that's Jalen Holmes, the sophomore from Norfolk, Virginia. One of the many guys in the mix at that defensive end spot, walking very gingerly toward the sidelines.
It's good to see him walking off, though, because hopefully that implies that it's not incredibly serious. You got to remember, you have all summer to get healed up. So hopefully this isn't something that'll require any extensive rehabilitation or surgery.
Yeah, you always worry about those lower extremities in a spring game. Knee, leg, ankle.
Like he had his left arm kind of secured to his body as he came off the field. Collier threw behind Joe Ramstetter. Second down.
I'm impressed with here. I've seen Darren Lee, Nick Connor come off the edge and apply some pressure. That's something we've seen too much.
There's the injury as he came down after the block by Dunn. Jalen Holmes intended to on the sidelines. Hard to tell anything from that block. Warren Ball to the 40-yard line. The Big Ten Digital Network is now BTN Plus, available on BTN to go. Subscribe to BTN Plus and gain access to hundreds of non-televised games, then enjoy them on more platforms wherever you are. Get BTN Plus now, available on BTN to go.
Hey, Bobby, Coach Meyer changed things up this year. They now practice in the morning. I know you're around here a lot. How did that go?
I think it went pretty well. Looking at this, you know, they wanted to, obviously, as a coach, you want to minimize class conflicts, and a lot of classes are in the afternoon. The average student, they're sleeping in, I think, till 11:30 in the midday sometimes. So this way they could take advantage of that, get the guys in, get them in early, work them out, get the meetings, get them practiced up, and then they're out of there by 1 o'clock, go to class, tutoring, fulfill the rest of your commitments. I think they said it went very well. And also they had to do that transitioning, you know, from quarters a couple years ago for so long now to semesters. That's something they had to do.
Well, we can't have Bobby Carpenter on without finding some Bobby Carpenter footage. Practicing, of course, for Bobby Carpenter was optional because he was so good. He didn't have to practice. Just showed up in the big games and made the big plays, right?
I wish that was the case. It took a lot of work. I was a work in progress every single year. And, you know, it's great to see. We had a great linebacker room. And part of the reason I think the struggle here in 2012 and 2013 was, you know, the lack of athleticism and size of that linebacker position, and really just some youth and inexperience. And you've watched a guy like Josh Perry, who was, you know, playing probably a little earlier than he should have, a project kid coming in out of Olentangy, tall, thin, and you look at this guy now, 250 pounds, athletic and rangy. Those are the type of guys that they have again, and that's why this defense is playing so well.
Now the fumble by Collier, jarred out by Nick Connor, who's doing some very nice things. And Urban Meyer's reaction, as you might imagine, he's not going to like a fumble in the fall. He's not even like it in the spring.
He'd be yelling for a replay in the fall on that one, though.
Well, they haven't even ran the ball very much. I'm starting to look at these running plays. It couldn't have been but the 4th or 5th time. They've really been airing it out and trying to utilize their quarterbacks to see what they can do this spring.
So now the Gray team offense back out on the field. Earlier, we saw what we thought was a touchdown from the Gray when Jalen Marshall took the football and went into the end zone. And after several two-point conversion tries, everything was wiped off the board. So we're still scoreless.
Still scoreless, and still a lot of the starters are in there playing. Been a couple of series ending the first quarter here. Urban Meyer wanted to give the fans a little something to see.
Jones back to the air. The catch made by Corey Smith. And Corey Smith out to the 39-yard line. 4-yard pickup on the play. Our entire BTN crew here at Ohio Stadium alongside Glenn Mason, former Ohio State linebacker Bobby Carpenter, with Lisa Byington on the field. I'm Kevin Kugler. A pleasure to have you with us on a perfect day to cap spring ball here in Columbus, Ohio, and a giant crowd on hand. You know, Mace, you and I were here earlier in the year, in the last season, I should say, for Ohio State and Indiana on BTN. There was an ice storm the morning of that game, And I can promise you that when we kicked off that game, there was not as big a crowd in the stadium for the game when we kicked it off in the regular season as there is right now for the spring game.
The weather was so bad, the roads were so bad they couldn't get here. But, you know, I mentioned before the only empty seats that you'd see here were the cheap seats. I don't even see them empty anymore. I mean, this is a full house. It really is.
It's unbelievable. That ice game you talked about last year, I walked out of my driveway, live only a stone's throw from the stadium, fell right down. It was a nice little sheet of black ice that covered all of Columbus. Rough time. You see Adolphus Washington right there applying a little pressure. Even before that, you get to see Curtis Samuel making his first catch, as an H-back, making an impact on this game. A guy they've been trying to utilize a lot here today.
It's a testament to, A, Buckeye fans for coming out to watch this, and B, the weather helps. It's a gorgeous day. It's a Saturday afternoon, but man, oh man, you win a national championship in a place where they love college football like Ohio State, and this is what you get.
No, really,
a packed house.
When you think about it, why on a day like today to get your really first glimpse of the 2015 version of the Ohio State Buckeyes, why wouldn't you come out today?
That's a great question in Columbus, Ohio, but the weather says it all, because mid to late April can be 45 and rainy, or you can get these days like today that are 75 and sunny. You feel like you're off the coast of California down in San Diego here. What else would you rather do? People around here play enough golf. They're passionate about their Buckeyes, and they've turned out to see them.
We have reached the end of the first quarter as the Scarlet and Gray continue their spring season-ending battle at Ohio Stadium. Second quarter straight ahead on BTN. Back at Ohio Stadium, second quarter about to begin, and a defensive battle so far in the spring game. And you see the defensive recap from a year ago allowed 22 points per game, but they really ramped it up in the postseason. 36 total points in the 3 postseason wins. And Lisa Byington is standing by down on the field with defensive coordinator Luke Fickell.
Yeah, well, Coach, I think Urban Meyer even said the last 3 games last year, it was hard to even imagine a better defense. How do you use that success as maybe a teaching tool for these guys going into next year?
Well, it's about belief, and when you have confidence in what you're doing, you got a chance to be a lot better. And I think that's what we're really excited to build upon from what ended the last 3 games of the year. That confidence level, that belief in what it is that we're doing really has led into spring ball.
Joey Bosa, one of the big names defensively here coming back. What is your challenge for him next year?
The challenge is to make him the best in the country. And obviously he's a great football player. He's got an upside out of this world. But we got to make him better. We got to make him understand the game of football more. Make him the best in the country at everything he does.
Put you on the spot. Can he get a 15-sack season next year?
There's no doubt. I mean, he should break Mike Vrabel's record. But the reality is he's got to play within the scheme of the defense, which will make us better, which in the long run will make him a lot better too.
Finally, fill in the blank. You are most impressed with who this spring?
There's a lot of guys, but our back end, our corners, and our safeties have done an unbelievable job. We're really going to have to see the leadership with Joshua Perry and those guys step up and fill in for like a Curtis Grant that was so valuable to us. But the back end of our defense has done an unbelievable job this entire spring.
All right, Luke Fickell, thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
You know, Bobby, you think about how that defense finished last year, and when we were watching the championship game against Wisconsin, 59-0, I was thinking to myself, where did this defense come from? Because we hadn't seen them play like that. And then down at the Sugar Bowl, I asked Urban Meyer, being around those players, I said, it seems like the Buckeye defense now has their swagger back, and you heard Luke Fickell refer to that as far as the confidence.
The confidence comes from the fact that those guys, finally begin to mature and have some experience. And that came throughout the season, the development. No one likes to learn on the job, but that's the position those guys were put into. Von Bell, Eli Apple, even Tyvis Powell shifted from nickelback back to the back end. They had Durand Grant back there, really the lone mainstay from the season before. They lost Michael Bennett. Steve Miller was a defensive end that was inserted late due to Noah Spence being kicked off the team. And then Curtis Grant, the piece in the middle, the Mike linebacker. But the rest of those guys were very young, had to learn on the job, and after 13 games, they finally seemed to have it all figured out.
Cardale Jones on the designed quarterback draw gets down to the 21-yard line before he is touched up.
Obviously he's got a black shirt on. You see that play right there. But you think of all the weapons that Ohio State have, and then you think about a 250-pound quarterback pulling the ball down and running up the middle like that. man, I'm glad I'm not a defensive coordinator.
It's tough because you see a quarterback running in space and your first thought is, how can we get this guy to the ground? Well, then all of a sudden you're breaking down, you're slowing down, and Cardale Jones lowers his shoulder and he runs you over, and it's a pretty humbling moment, not only during the game, but then when you have to come and watch the film on Sunday, and every single one of the guys on the defense is going to give you a hard time because you just got ran over by the opposing team's quarterback.
You make a good point. Every player's got to know their abilities, and when he breaks through there and he sees a safety, he doesn't try to run around him. He takes dead beat on him.
Absolutely. You saw Curtis Samuel there get a little fly sweep, faked it to him right there, but trying to get him involved early and often, seeing what he can do in the open field and use that athleticism.
Nice little spin, got everybody oohing and eyeing in the stands as he's down to the 9-yard line. That's some of the stuff that they think Curtis Samuel can do during the course of the season. Urban Meyer said it's our job to get him on the field for 40 to 50 plays. The days of him playing 10 plays are over.
Well, you see the move that he puts on there. You like to put a skilled athlete one-on-one. He beats 3 guys right there. Exceptional athlete.
And Urban he talks about getting all these guys 50 plays a game. Problem is there's only 11 guys on the field. You only have 5 skill players, and on top of that, as many plays as you can try to run, you're probably still going to top out at about 75, 80.
Cardale nowhere to go with that no contact jersey on. Stopped just across the 9-yard line.
Even as a quarterback, you got to get a little frustrated. They're going to call a running play for you, and then you're going to get tagged down when you're inside the red zone. Cardale Jones is a big physical guy. He smells the end zone. He wants to try to get in there.
Showed you earlier, Jalen Holmes had walked off. Jalen Holmes is back on the field now. That's good to see for the Buckeyes.
Young guy, big, good-looking athlete.
And deflected at the line. The pass incomplete, and Holmes right back on the field and makes an immediate impact.
What's unbelievable is there's an awful lot of blitzing going on in this, Mason. You think most coaches, especially an offensive guy, they limit what their defense can show them. They want to make sure the offense develops a rhythm. But they've been bringing pressure off the edge with the linebackers. You saw there their linebackers rushing inside, defensive ends keeping contained, giving Cardale Jones some different looks to try to help push his maturity.
Well, that's probably the residual effect of Urban Meyer still involved in the defense, you know. He wants that. He knows if the defense is good, they're really going to be good.
3rd and goal, and the pressure up the middle and the sack. Donovan Munger, who, as you can tell, has converted to the Scarlet team during the course of this first half.
You talk about the Ohio State offense a year ago averaging over 500 yards a game. With all the weapons they have, literally unstoppable, and for the most part of the year, questionable defense, Bobby.
Yes.
So now all of a sudden, if you still do that offensively, but you play the type of defense they played in the last 3 games, you think about the offensive statistics.
Well, absolutely. They're going to get a lot of offensive plays. They're going to wear defenses down when you're forcing 3 and outs, and on top of that, you're running a spread, a tempo offense. It's very difficult for those defenses to be able to handle that, and that's, you know, the evolution of the last decade of what college football has become. And if you look at this Ohio State defense, one of the best ways to stop a spread attack is to force them to go 3 and out and get the ball back for your offense. You saw that in the national championship game, slowing down that Oregon Ducks offense and getting the ball right back and allowing their big physical offensive line to begin to wear down Oregon's defensive front.
So the field goal is good. For the moment, it's 3-0 Gray. But now Nurnberger will try this one from 39 yards. And with Urban Meyer standing right next to him as he kicks it, and the kick is no good.
You know, I had a kicker one year, and he was really pretty good, and we got in a situation like this, and he kept missing the kicks. And then after practice, he told me, and he says, Coach, I'm pretty good at these, but when you're there, you make me nervous. I said, you know, I am going to come to the games next year. You know?
One more try from 39, and the kick is no good.
Well, this is a big piece of it. Ohio State fortunately didn't need to use Sean Nurnberger late in games last year to win, but he wasn't a terrific kicker by any standpoint. They've typically had very good specialists at Ohio State. And when you're playing those big-time critical games against fairly evenly matched competition, sometimes it's going to come down to a 40-yard field goal to win the game.
Well, that's one of the reasons why the news came out this week, as Nurnberger's kick is good this time. Jack Willoughby is going to transfer from Duke. He's a graduate transfer initially coming in as a kickoff specialist because Kyle Clinton had that spot last year, and Ohio State was tops in the nation in opponent starting field position a year ago. So you want that kickoff specialist, but in a couple of the interviews that Jack Willoughby did afterwards, he said, look, I want to compete for that kicking job, not just the kickoff specialist, but the kicking job.
Well, you know that kickers are competitors, and it's one thing to be the kickoff guy, but you like to go out there and see the points go up on the board. And you know what's the term you used before? Embarrassing. How much talent did they have?
Embarrassment of riches.
Embarrassment of riches. I never heard that term before.
Well, and that's what they've had. It's been terrific here, but you got to love a kid that transfers in, a kicker, knowing that you're going to play in some big games and your number might be called to win a nationally televised game.
A special welcome to the 800 families joining us today with A Kid Again, a Columbus-based charitable group that wants to help give children facing life-threatening illness a giant timeout. Today, these kids and their families were treated to a VIP experience with Brutus and the OSU cheerleaders, sponsored by Safe Light Auto Glass, the nation's largest provider of vehicle glass repair and replacement services. To make a donation, visit akidagain.org.
Love to see they just announced the attendance, over 99,000, breaking the Ohio State record and the national record. About 700 shy of getting to 100 grand, which would have been unbelievable.
I want to recount.
Collier airing it out, and it's intercepted. Picked off by Eric Smith, who's able to snare that one, intended for Paris Campbell.
Yeah, you can't lay the ball up like that. That's a fair catch for the corner to come over and the safety to come over and make a play on it.
Well, and Paris Campbell, one of those young receivers Urban Meyer talked about out of Akron, St. Vincent St. Mary guy, tons of vertical speed down the field, big, fast. But Eric Smith, where's he from? Nowhere else than Cleveland, Glenville, a young safety vying for some action out there. And the coaches are very high on him, believe he can be a big-time playmaker. I
love what he says. I'm going to get to the ball with some intentions. That's what you want out of your safety. He's not afraid to hit. He got to the ball that time and intercepted it, showing some decent hands as well.
We've got some equipment changes taking place down there. When you're short of people in spring practice, some guys have to do double duty, so you have some guys from the Scarlet team that are on the gray team now.
How do you feel about that? You come off, you get a defensive stop. What's your reward? You get to flip over and play some defense right away again.
Son, why'd you come to Ohio State? You wanted to play, didn't you? I'm letting you play.
Oh, goodness, yeah. Once the starters are out now, it's going to be double duty for a lot of these guys. Going to be some hard work. And the starters get to sit there, enjoy the fruits of their labor, being able to enjoy the rest of this wonderful spring sunny day. Where, you know, some of these younger guys are out here working, battling. You know, the coaches want to test them and not only see, you know, how good they are physically, but some of it is, you know, toughness, being able to see how many plays you can play consecutively without wearing down.
That's Michael Hill that you saw there, switching jerseys. Cardale Jones still out there. And he'll likely be out there for most of the day, with only two quarterbacks for the most part expected to play.
It was interesting. Urban Meyer did that last year. We talked about Stephen Collier. Last season, Braxton Miller was out. They're trying to work Cardale Jones, trying to work JT Barrett. Stephen Collier, an early enrollee, doesn't play a single snap in the spring game. Doesn't throw a ball. Now, today, he's going to get a lot of work, as is Cardale Jones. And as good as Cardale is, he's only started 3 games. All of them have been neutral site games, so he's going to need to get some work here today.
First down and 10 at the 23. Gray squad with that 3-0 lead. Jones looking deep again, and a little bit too deep for Noah Brown.
Man, he can throw the deep ball, can he? Well, I can see why Urban Meyer talks about having a replacement for Devin Smith, someone to take the top off the defense as he pushes it, because this guy, Cardale Jones, is not going to underthrow the deep ball.
No, absolutely. He's going to line up and sling it. He's getting the ball out a little bit earlier today. That's something you like to see, because as strong as his arm is, you have to be able to throw the ball in rhythm to have success. Because Devin Smith was a guy that could get down the field in a hurry. You know, threw a couple late. Devin came back, made some big-time plays. But they, even more so, they need to try to also work on him today with his intermediate passing game, because there are ways to take away the deep ball to a certain extent, and you want to try to develop Cardale into an all-around quarterback.
Delay of game going to cost the Gray squad some yardage.
5-yard penalty remains. Second down.
Delay a game with your head coach standing right behind you. And Other quarterbacks on headset behind you. Not what you're looking for. Braxton Miller.
I mean, I'm always befuddled how you can get a delay a game when the coach is right behind you giving you the plays. I mean, that to me is much on the coach, Mace, as it is on the players.
I would agree 100%. I always used to say when I was coaching, if we get a delay game, it's on the coaches. It's not on the guys on the field. Ed Werner did an outstanding. No one did a better job coaching the offensive line in college football than that guy right there last year.
Now, Mace, let me ask you this, because as a guy who's been on the field, obviously, both as an assistant and as a head coach, he's staying on the field as the offensive coordinator. Tim Beck, who was the offensive coordinator at Nebraska, is now the quarterback's coach and co-coordinator here. He's going to be the eyes in the sky. How does that work from a play calling standpoint to have Coach Warner down on the field?
In a perfect world, the guy that's calling the plays, you'd sure like to have him in the press box because you can see. It's awful difficult on the sideline. Now, the trade-off or the thinking for Urban Meyer is Ed Werner, first and foremost, is the offensive line coach. He needs him on the field, making those blocking adjustments, talking to those linemen. So they're going to trade off and have the eyes in the sky being Tim Beck in the press box.
Well, let's not forget, too, Urban Meyer, still an offensive-minded coach, has called plays for quite a while. He has a headset on, and I'm sure he's giving his input into those plays as well.
Well, there's no doubt. As I mentioned a number of times, Bobby, is that this offense that we've seen the last couple of years was not Tom Herman's offense. It's Urban Meyer's offense. Now, Tom Herman was the offensive coordinator, and he was handpicked by Urban Meyer because he thought what he saw him do at Iowa State, he'd be able to come in here and run the offense, and he did a good job. Great job.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier what a difference a year makes. Last year, the talk was about the defensive coordinating position, bringing in Chris Ash as a co-coordinator with Luke Fickell, a defense that had struggled in 2012 and 2013. No one's asking any questions about the defense today.
There's Tim Beck down on the field.
You know, that's a good point, Bobby, and I would pose the question again. You're around here a lot. We saw the transformation of that defense in the final 3 games. Can we expect to see that type of Ohio State defense that people typically have become accustomed to, the silver bullet type defense? Or is it going to be another defense in the Big Ten that's 4th or 5th or 6th in the league?
I think that defense finally began to mature, and it comes in with having big-time players. They had big-time players in 2013, but they were just young. Von Bell, baby. Darren Lee, a baby. Joey Bosa, a young guy. These guys are now juniors. Some of them are seniors. They've got guys who have been developing underneath. I think this Ohio State defense is in a great place, not really because of the scheme, because as you know, a lot of schemes work, but because of the guys on the field and what they can do.
A couple of guys who left this program after last season on their way, they hope, to the National Football League, and certainly Devin Smith and Michael Bennett, prospects for the next level. You see last season's totals, 2 guys that Ohio State will certainly want to try to replace as we move into the fall. Lisa Byington is standing by on the field with certainly one of the most famous alums of Ohio State football.
Archie Griffin, are you a famous Ohio State alum? That's what Kevin Kugler said. I bet you are. A very proud alum as well. How has this campus been re-energized since the national title run?
Oh, it's totally energized. I mean, as you can tell, looking at this crowd out here today, I mean, the stadium holds 106,000. I wonder what the count is today. But that national championship and the type of year it was just remarkable. I mean, that's the best way to describe it, remarkable, when you consider the adversity this team came through to get that national championship.
It also allows you to kind of reunite with some other alums in terms of like Troy Smith and Eddie George. I know you guys had a function yesterday. Do you ever compare fish stories between the 3 of you guys and your accolades here?
Well, we always compare fish stories. You know, mine get bigger. I've been out a lot longer than them, so mine get a lot bigger than theirs.
A 2-time Heisman winner. It's now become kind of a quarterback award. When can we see the running back get a Heisman again? And what would it take for Ezekiel Elliott to get it next year?
Well, I think it's going to take a lot because it has been a quarterback award. But when you have games and postseason like Ezekiel had, you can't help but be recognized. And I think going into the season, he will be recognized as one of the top candidates, I mean, really top candidates for the award. And if he can come through with the type of season we think he's capable of doing, yeah, there's a real possibility he can do it. No question in my mind.
Archie Griffin, thank you. We always appreciate the time.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Kevin.
All right, Lisa, thank you very much. One of the all-time greats and one of the all-time great guys,
the best.
Just a terrific guy and a great representative of Ohio State football.
Now, you talk about Heisman Trophy, fellas, going forward next year. And you could arguably say, okay, well, if Braxton Miller is the quarterback, he could be in the discussion. J.T. Barrett, yes. Cardell Jones, yes. Ezekiel Elliott, yes. Joey Bosa, yes. Now, what's that term you use again? Embarrassment of talent?
Embarrassment of riches.
Riches, that's it. I got to get that one. I got to write that one down.
But when Archie talked about the ability of a running back to win it, I think you look back to one of the last running backs to win it, Mark Ingram at Alabama. You have to be the best player on really the best team.
Yep.
And I think Ezekiel Elliott has an opportunity to do that. If he can keep up his momentum, rush for over 1,800 yards last year, and really do it on a national stage like he did, he's a household name. Unfortunately, they're not going to let him roll the jersey anymore, which is maybe going to hurt him a little bit psychologically. But I think he's a guy that has enough name recognition. If he puts up the numbers, he might have a shot.
The problem he has is that he's on the same team with Curtis Samuel and Jalen Marshall and Cardale Jones or whoever is running at that quarterback spot. You wonder, will he get enough work to put up the kind of gaudy numbers on a team that is loaded with talent?
Absolutely. That's what's going to be difficult, is the quarterbacks are going to be able to air it out. There's only one football. And as you look around here, you've seen some great some catches today. And Cardell Jones, Braxton Miller, J.T. Barrett, whoever that guy is, I mean, if they're able to put 3,000 yards or passing through the air, it's going to be tough for Ezekiel to challenge that.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, if Ohio State as a team has the type of year, if they meet the expectations that everybody has for them, and Ezekiel Elliott plays and performs the way he did, Sugar Bowl, championship game, he will be in New York. I don't know if he'll win or not, but he'll be in New York.
The question will become is,
he might not be alone.
Well, could they be that USC team where you have Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, two guys going, only one can win, but possibly the quarterback running back combo?
Collier gonna have to run. Ooh, big block. Joe Ramstetter. That's a fall block in the spring game.
And that's Nick Connor, the freshman again out of Dublin, Scioto, early enrollee, made some plays. But that's part about being a young guy. Got to keep the head on the swivel and understand where some of the potential blockers may be coming.
He's going to be hurting at the prom tonight. When you're an early roller, do you still go to the prom? I don't know.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you want to go to the prom? I mean, you're the big guy in college now, especially since he only goes to school about 10 minutes away.
Cardell Jones, J.T. Barrett, Braxton Miller. Take your pick, fellas.
Boy, not a bad choice to make.
It's funny because each one of those guys brings a different element to your offense that you love. And whether it's Cardell's size and arm strength, or Braxton, the fact that each time he has the ball in his hands, it's almost a hold your breath moment because he can make 4 or 5 guys miss, take it the distance. And then J.T. Barrett, not really, doesn't seem to be exceptional at anything, but seems to be really good at just about everything.
Cardale Jones numbers today.
All right, Bobby, I'm going to put you on the spot. You're down the playground, assuming all 3 quarterbacks are healthy, and you got the first pick. Who you taking?
I got an affinity for J.T. Barrett, what he was done. And this, I want to exclude Braxton from this because I haven't seen him throw a football in over a year.
I'm assuming they're healthy.
Assuming Braxton can throw it like he did before, that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. But J.T. Barrett, there's just something about him with the fact of all the talent that they have on this team. He's the point guard that can distribute it. Braxton is terrific. He's a dynamic player. And when you have a talent-deficient offense, you need a quarterback like him. J.T. Barrett is the ultimate point guard that can distribute the football around and make other players better.
Eric Smith showing a nose for the ball in this spring game. His 2nd interception of the spring game. And the sophomore from Cleveland gets it back for the gray team.
It's a film that he's going to enjoy watching here after spring game. Guy that's battling, trying to get on the field when you have Von Bell, Tyvis Powell. Hey, Coach, can you get me in a nickel package? Can we find a way to get me out here for 10 or 15 snaps on Saturdays?
You know, Bobby, you made a point before that I thought was very good. When you have guys like Darren Lee playing linebacker, so you don't have to play a substitution type defense versus spreads, that becomes so important, because when you get into a game against up-tempo offenses, you don't have time to substitute. It's a lot better, a lot easier for that defensive coordinator to put his best 11 out there and let them adjust.
Absolutely. If you can have 2 players or 3 players on your defense that can oscillate between defensive back and linebacker, or linebacker and defensive line, maybe a former linebacker that's now a DN that you can always stand up and move around, or a safety that's a linebacker that you can move back and forth. It gives you a ton of options, and against those up-tempo teams, you can keep your whole defensive package available to you and continue to rush the quarterback and try to blitz and mix it up to help make it difficult on that offense, because the up-tempo, what it only does is not wear your players down, but you get stuck in what you can call defensively, and you usually call only vanilla packages because you're afraid of making a mistake.
Yeah, it can get very complicated if you don't. You're calling blitzes with the wrong package.
Absolutely.
Wrong package with the wrong blitzes. I mean, it's tough.
The guys looking around, 10 guys on the field, 12 guys on the field. If you can just keep 11 out there and do everything, it works pretty well.
On first down, Jones looking deep once more, and the pass incomplete, intended for Jalen Marshall. Forte out there on the coverage.
I think we got one right there for Glenn, the first time that he's actually underthrown the receiver in quite a while.
It was about 70 yards downfield, but it was a little underthrown. Threw it a little late.
And that's something I think that he has to continue to work on and develop, is getting the ball out of your hand earlier. When you've got such a strong arm, Cardinals got superior confidence in his ability to hold it and throw it in wherever. But the great quarterbacks are able to get it out just that split second earlier, so they don't necessarily have to use all of their arm strength every single play.
Briante Dunn to the 31, a 4-yard pickup for the junior from Canton, who's been the primary running back this spring with Ezekiel Elliott out. And Urban Meyer said it started for Dunn with special teams last year. That's where he started to contribute, and by the end of the year, he was outstanding. And there was some question as to what the future was going to be for Briante Dunn in this program if he didn't take that jump. But he did make that jump, and now there certainly appears to be some moments for Dunn moving forward.
Some nice mobility in the pocket right there for Cardale Jones. A little bit overthrown, but you like to see him be able to move around, avoid the pressure, and not just be able to avoid it to run and scramble, but scramble to throw the ball down the field. Because as you see in the NFL and the collegiate level, quarterbacks that can buy time, extend the play, and then still get rid of the ball down the field when the coverage breaks down, that's when those big plays can really occur.
Sometimes, to your point, when a quarterback has success running the football or scrambling, he opts to run before he really has to. And if you can extend the play, boy, does that put pressure on the defense.
It really does. Those defensive backs having to run around and plaster to guys, and really the defensive line, those guys are exhausted. They've got to chase around a guy that's 250 pounds, running a 4.6, 4.7 40. It can be a long day if you don't have a lot of subs.
Good conversion on fourth down. Cato Mitchell with the catch over the middle in traffic, and now at the 42-yard line, of first down for the Gray team. 3-0 advantage for the Gray, and
Cardale Jones looks a little slimmer in a black jersey. You know what? I mean, he does.
Listen, he's a big, thick guy.
Oh, man, is he.
He's got a face. I got another one for you here. He's got a 4-sider. What it means is his face touches all 4 sides of his driver's license picture. He's a big, thick guy.
Oh, great deep ball, and he finds Corey Smith for the touchdown.
Corey Smith, senior, out of Akron. Guy who went to a junior college, coming in, big expectations. One of the smoothest route runners you're going to find. Has had some issues, but the guy can separate. He made some big plays early in the season, had some drops against Vautech, stepped up, huge plays special teams-wise in the Sugar Bowl and National Championship game, and now you're seeing him earn the respect and trust of the coaches and being able to make big plays down the field. I think he is the guy that could really step up and end up being that vertical outside receiver that Urban Meyer so desperately covets.
Well, they tested Forte a couple plays ago, and he did a great job on the fade. They came right back, and he got burned.
And now the extra point. And Nuremberger makes it A 10-0 lead for the Gray. The 58-yard touchdown pass from Cardale Jones to the much-traveled Corey Smith, who started at Grand Rapids Community College. They ended their football program. He went to East Mississippi Community College, became the first junior college recruit to Ohio State since 2006. Sometimes it takes a little while for those guys coming into a program from junior college, and nice sign for Urban Meyer's squad to see Corey Smith break one deep, and as he said to Lisa in the pregame, take the top off the defense.
Yeah, he's from Akron Bookville. You know what the mascot of Akron Bookville is?
I do not. I bet you do, though.
The Griffins.
Ah.
I think that's the name of it. It's kind of like a half horse, half something or other.
They've had a lot of players come out of Akron Bookville come out and play at Ohio State. And typically, Ohio State doesn't recruit a lot of junior college guys, but given that he's from Akron, he's local here, to the state, thinking they could take a chance on him. And, he's had a long path to get here. He's had a long journey while he's at Ohio State. But he's got a lot of talent, Glenn, and you saw it right there, being able to stretch the defense and make plays down the field.
Corey Smith, 58-yard touchdown reception as we get set to put the wraps on this first half here.
How about this, a little situational football? You got about a minute left. You got 60 yards to the end zone. As a defensive coordinator, what are you telling your defensive backs?
Don't get beat deep.
Keep it in front of you. Make them drive down the field. Luke Fickle might be pulling his hair out.
You tell your secondary coach that they get behind you, you're fired. That's what you tell them.
Well, the loser of this game, there are consequences to this spring contest other than bragging rights. You've got to walk back to the Woody, and then next Friday, the loser will be landscaping Buckeye Grove.
And Urban Meyer, he's big on the competition here. And he thinks that brings out the best in his guys. When you have a lot of talented players, that's something that you always want to do. Have winner-loser days during practice where they have the hot dogs and burnt hamburgers versus the steaks and the prime rib. And they've eliminated that from the spring game. But how about a little bit of hard labor here with some landscape and pulling weeds over here in Buckeye Grove?
All right, my question. What happens to these guys who play for both teams?
That's a good question.
Are you always a loser or always a winner?
I don't know.
I think it's where you started the day on the roster. Collier trying to one-up Cardale Jones with a deep ball intended for Paris Campbell, and it's second down.
We'll have two young bucks right there going at it. Damon Webb, Cass Tech guy out of Detroit, going up to Michigan, getting some players. Very talented defensive back as well that is challenging Garyon Conley for that starting role this year. And then Paris Campbell, another tall guy that we've talked about, hasn't had any big catches yet, but they've sure tried him a lot down the field.
First Cass Tech player since Vernon Golston at Ohio State.
Ohio State's had a lot of success here in Michigan as of late with the struggles of Brady Hook in that program, Urban Meyer down here going up and getting some players. It's interesting to see how long he'll be able to keep those pipelines going.
Collier, a little short pass completed at the 37-yard line. That's Jeff Green, who's had a couple of catches today.
Transfer out of Georgia Tech, big, tall, physical receiver, good player on special teams for the Buckeyes. And this drive will be important for Collier to really develop a little tempo and flow here.
Third down and 7. Good protection for Collier and a good pass over the middle for the first down. Down to the 46 goes Paris Campbell. And moved the chains with 23 seconds to go until halftime.
Avoiding a big hit there by Eric Smith, trying to get there with those bad intentions. Had a couple picks on the day, trying to get a big knockout shot, but a huge conversion in my mind for Stephen Collier to get his confidence going and get this offense moving.
It's one thing for wide receivers to run those fade routes or the takeoff routes. It's another thing to run across the middle. As a coach, you always like to see how they look the ball and how they catch the ball, assuming that they're going to get hit pretty good when they catch it.
Especially those deep over routes that take a while. Sometimes the quarterback has to float it a little bit over the linebacker. And you have that backside safety or cornerback sitting there licking his chops ready for that. That a lot to me is on the quarterback forcing a look off. If you're going to throw me into something like that, you better make sure that there's nobody around.
There's absolutely no doubt about it. When you see a big blow-up hit going across the middle, everybody ought to look at the quarterback saying, you didn't see that guy coming down? Huh? Because the receiver's looking back at the quarterback.
BTN has you covered for spring football. Next, the guys break down the Buckeyes on the Big Ten Spring Football Report. Then at 4, we take you to Penn State for the blue and white game. Then at 6, the Illini give a sneak peek at the upcoming season today on BTN and BTN to go. BTN will feature 12 conference programs as night games coming up in this season. Football Media Day and the kickoff luncheon July 30th and 31st in Chicago. And the 120th season of Big Ten football kicks off Thursday, September 3rd.
Right around the corner.
It's before you know it.
How about Tim Beckman over at Illinois, 4-6 at the end of the season, wins his last 2 games to make it to a bowl game. He'll coached here at Ohio State under Jim Tressel, also under Urban Meyer at BG, so well-traveled. It's good to see him have some success, and anxious to see how the Illini will do this season.
Jeff Green, the intended receiver. Damon Webb out there on the coverage. 17 seconds remaining in the half. Scarlett just trying to get a little good feeling before the second half. Second half will feature a running clock. That'll be the difference that Urban Meyer puts in to get the process accelerated a little bit.
I'm impressed that this many people have managed to stay this long into the game. Not a very high-scoring game by any stretch. And we talked a little bit of the pressure on the kicker here. If Stephen Collier can move this team about 10, 15 yards, maybe a nice little big kick to end the half.
Or if the commissioner all of a sudden institutes a penalty, you know.
Get those personal fouls just come out of nowhere.
Urban Meyer says just keep playing. There was a delay of game, but he says keep it going. Collier with lots of time found the open man. That's Ramstetter down at the 35-yard line.
Right at the sticks, moving the ball, and now we're in 35-yard line. Chance for maybe a 53-yard field goal, and you love to see Urban Meyer waving off the back judge on a delay of game.
Timeout of the half. Scarlet team.
Timeout taken as Ramstetter on the receiving end.
Showed a little growth for Stephen Collier right there to hang in the pocket. You know, it's breaking down. It's getting late in the down. A lot of quarterbacks are going to be apt to pull it down and run. Maybe he gets 5 yards there. Keeps his head up the field, finds a receiver, converts it in the 2-minute situation now. It'll be interesting whether they'll run one more play or maybe just try to kick a field goal right here.
Ohio State closing out the spring, and then the focus will be on summer conditioning and then the fall. And for Ohio State, the defense of the national championship begins September 7th, Monday night at Virginia Tech. Short week before the home opener against Hawaii, then Northern Illinois and Western Michigan closing out the non-conference season. And then, of course, conference play begins at Indiana on October 3rd. For Ohio State, of course, a program so rich in history and tradition. Buckeyes adding another national championship to that list of national titles. 863 wins, 35 Big Ten championships. Hoping to add more numbers to that rundown this year. Collier with 9 seconds to go, looking deep down the sideline, and the pass incomplete for Terry McLaurin. Good coverage from Damon Webb once more.
I'd like to see Stephen Collier put the ball out there. Only his guy can get it. You're in field goal range. Don't make a mistake. Leave it out there where the defensive back can pick it. Make sure it's a good and well-thrown ball. He was able to do that, and it's great to see Damon Webb out there playing well on defense as well.
They're not going to opt, at least at this moment, for the long field goal try.
There might be more time on the clock that we don't know about yet.
Exactly. Collier looking deep once more for McLaurin in the end zone. A leaping grab and a touchdown. Who needs a field goal when you can air it out for 6? And Terry McLaurin with an acrobatic catch to get the Scarlet team on the board.
This thing, Damon Webb defends it great one play. The ball's thrown a little bit over his head. Thrown a little bit on the back shoulder right here. Damon Webb doesn't get his head around. Terry McLaurin makes the catch. And he's one of the receivers that Urban Meyer was touching about, a younger player stepping up, trying to vie for time next season.
Exciting moment for Terry McLaurin. Watched from the sidelines a year ago after a tremendous career at Cathedral High School in the Indianapolis area. The extra point up and good for Nurnberger. And halftime, we believe, is here. Although in a spring game, you never know for sure. That is indeed the end of the first half. Halftime has arrived in Columbus. And at Ohio Stadium, Cardale Jones and the Gray Squad with a 10-7 lead over the Scarlet team in Columbus. More from Ohio Stadium coming up on BTN. A 10-7 advantage for the Gray as we welcome you back for a push-up contest here at halftime. Kevin Kugler alongside Glenn Mason and Bobby Carpenter. I do not notice Lisa Byington participating in the push-up contest between students and players on the field.
You know who else you don't see out there is Bobby Carpenter, and they invited.
Or Kevin Kugler or Glenn Mason.
We didn't get invited to go out there.
No, that's true.
Bobby Carpenter did. He was going to go out there in his suit and perform.
They got a variety of activities out here, Glenn. They've got the push-up contest, I believe some sort of leg lift contest, the fastest Buckeye, where they get students pitting them against current players. A couple former players are going to run as well. And then they have the quarterback skills challenge. So, really, it's like coming out to watch a carnival. And Urban Meyer does as good a job as anybody is engaging the student body, understands how important it was to be able to fill South stands today. And this is part of the reason why.
Some of the things that Urban Meyer has done, I think when he first came here, the quick cows with the band and the students, you now see other programs trying to emulate Fan Appreciation Day, get the fans out, especially the students. Get them out there, get them involved. I think it's tremendous.
You realize in today's day and age, I mean, you can sit in your house and watch a game, the same as you can in the stadium. But the experience is almost a push, so Urban understands how important it is to get everybody out here, fill up this big stadium, and his attendance numbers have ebbed and flowed throughout the country. Ohio State has done a great job of continuing to engage the fans, and that's why you're seeing sellout after sellout.
Is this push-up, do you keep going till you quit? Is that the deal?
Pretty much.
I think they're doing some judging as well.
Oh.
They got Ezekiel Elliott, I believe. He's down there yelling, encouraging guys. They've got some of the other current players.
Beanie Wells is out there doing it?
Yeah, Beanie Wells. I mean, they got everybody. That's what Urban wants to engage the alumni and really give people a show to watch. I'm excited to see the fastest Buckeye competition because it's interesting. You got some guys, some students who come out here that are hovering around the 4.4 range that might be able to give some of these guys a run.
Here I am down at the Sugar Bowl working for the BTN and walking down the street with my wife, and the guy starts yelling to Beanie Wells. He comes running over and he says, Coach, he says, do you remember when I was with the Akron Garfield High School, do you remember when you came to my house and tried to recruit me? I said, do I remember? I said, if I would have got you, I'd probably still be coaching.
Beanie Wells back in Columbus doing some radio, and it's good to see him down there doing this. He had a little Achilles rupture, so I don't know if he's going to be taking part in the running portion of today's test.
Let's hope not.
I think he's down there doing some push-ups and getting involved.
The push-up contest continuing at Ohio Stadium. We're getting close to a winner. Down to 3. We'll take a break. We'll fill you in on the victorious push-up champion when we return to Columbus. Gray leading the Scarlet 10-7 at half. It is still going on. Now the final 2 participants.
Over 100?
Over 100 push-ups.
Over 100.
That's remarkable.
Head-to-head at Ohio Stadium.
We've got Anthony Schlegel down there running it. The former linebacker here, now current assistant strength coach, one of the toughest guys. A lot of energy, a lot of juice, getting everybody fired up. And you love Zeke Elliott running around down there, pumping the crowd as well.
And Brutus.
Getting everybody involved. I mean, listen, you got to get the band isn't here to perform at halftime, so they got to get some for the folks to stay and watch.
Who knew a push-up contest could be captivating television?
I'm impressed that these guys are still going. This is head-to-head stuff.
Battling Ezekiel Elliott. You see him in the front of that picture with his GoPro looking down there, and there is your push-up champion for 2015. And he is exhausted.
Everybody off! Off the field, baby. Off the field! Everybody off!
So a fine little display at halftime.
And he's thinking, was that worth it?
Exactly. What did I do, and why did I do that?
Talk about performing when the lights come on. You got almost 100,000 people watching. You go against someone else in a push-up contest. They're not going to bow out easily.
Good battle. And now This is a quarterback competition. Now, this was the most anticipated part of the halftime. JT Barrett is going to participate in this.
Of which my understanding, JT Barrett has really taken a lot of practice snaps in practice. Not running, but running the offense.
You know, so much of the game now is passing the ball down the field, so JT Barrett was able to take all of the 7-on-7 reps, and that was a big piece of it. He did a good job in there. They didn't want to get him in any team things. He had the ankle injury. You don't want to risk somebody falling down on an ankle, re-injuring that, but he was able to take all of the stuff with just the skill position players, and that's important for a young player's growth. You got to remember, he started 12 games. That's it. He was a redshirt freshman. He still has a long way to go.
JT Barrett whipping those passes out. And Barrett very excited. That's the only competition he's been able to get today. It's a little of the quarterback throwing competition. .230 points for Team 1. Cardale Jones anchoring Team number 2. Now, Cardale's either warmed up already or his arm's tired because of the action from the first half.
Well, you got to wonder how many passes he's going to throw in the second half after this little escapade.
This is a lot like playing Madden, except it's actually you out there playing it, but you go into the drills part of the game and you can attempt to do something very similar.
Well, there's even a rumor that Troy Smith might be out here throwing the football around.
I think it's more than a rumor.
The former Heisman winner out here, so they've got some current players, they've got some students that are going to be slinging it, and then you got Troy Smith, the former Heisman winner, so a wide variety of people.
Always a big smile, it seems, on Cardale's face, but coming up a little bit short on a couple of these passes. We said he's already thrown some 30 passes in a competition.
I don't think people realize how far some of these targets are down the field.
I mean, they're throwing it 50 yards.
And to line up and throw consecutive 50-yard passes over and over again is not great on your shoulder.
All right, now Troy Smith.
Here we go, the legend.
Now, what do you expect out of Troy Smith in this competition, Bobby?
I'll tell you, Troy Smith has thrown on the pro day workouts where guys are coming in, they come in to get evaluation. They haven't had a quarterback that's been leaving, so that Troy Smith come in to throw for the wide receivers and tight ends. He looked so good 2 years ago that scouts were asking him about him. He ended up going and playing a season in Canada for the Montreal Alouettes. I mean, that's how talented he is with his arm.
Well, he starts off with a deep ball, trying to hit those targets. That is not an easy task some 50 yards away.
It's not, but he has got a whip. Cardale Jones has a strong arm. Troy Smith's arm is just as strong when he's in shape and when he's in condition. I don't know if he's there today.
Well, he just hit one from 40, right on target.
And Glenn, the one ball is almost, the target's 60 yards down the field for these guys.
Seems like the timer has gone a little quicker for the last two teams as opposed to the JT Barrett team.
Commissioner might be getting restless.
Could be.
The clock has mysteriously stopped somehow on this halftime performance. I think it might be running a little long. I don't know if they anticipated over 100 push-ups being performed.
Team 1 with the lead. A throw-off is coming.
That's the problem, you get the overtimes.
Yep.
I don't know if Urban anticipated the overtimes.
Saw overtime earlier in the lacrosse game that was played here between Maryland and Ohio State. Maryland came from behind and won it in overtime to claim the Big Ten regular season championship, first ever for lacrosse.
And it's such a nice day. There isn't anybody concerned that Kevin Kluger's got a flight to catch tonight.
I'm fine. I'm not. It's our producer. Worried about him. He may be dining with you tonight, Coach. So now the throw-off. It's a distance contest. Man. Troy Smith.
This is just for distance?
This is just for distance. Here he goes.
Oh, wow. Wow. Wow.
That's a pretty good arm right there.
69 yards for a guy who's 31, 32 years old and hadn't probably thrown a football competitively in about 2 years.
Officially 68 for Troy Smith. And now Cardale Jones. He will sling it. Oh my goodness, that's even further.
It's almost 75, 74 yards.
74 yards for Cardale Jones. And despite the no contact jersey, JT Barrett with a little contact. Cardale wins the throw off in the quarterback competition.
There was probably a day when Troy Smith could line up and throw at 75. But I don't know if today is no longer that day, Glenn.
What a great nickname for Cardale Jones, a 12 gauge. Kids are great. They come up with amazing things.
He self-coined that. I'll give him a lot of credit. Most guys are a little shy. They don't want to throw their own nickname out there. He gave that nickname, and no one even said anything about it. No one thought twice because it was so appropriate.
Now, as they get lined up for the fastest Buckeye competition here at halftime, Lisa Byington is standing by down on the field with a couple of very special Buckeye guests.
Yeah, always fun to find some former players here on the sideline. Former linebacker Ryan Shazier and running back here Carlos Hyde. First of all, let me ask you, how's your health been?
Oh, it's getting a lot better. I've been training, working hard this offseason to get back to 100%. I'm almost there. I'm like at 95% right now, so I'm feeling really good.
Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin said that you're going to put on some weight. How much weight have you actually put on here for next season?
I put on about 5 or 6 pounds, but that's just about how much weight they wanted me to put on. So I just been putting on 5 or 6 pounds more lean body weight and just been losing a little bit of fat.
Carlos, this weather, it's like Cali weather. You're used to this kind of stuff.
A little bit. It's not humid in Cali, though. Cali is like perfect weather. Can't get a better day in Cali like this, though.
Have you had a chance to talk to Ezekiel Elliott at all while being back?
No, I haven't. This is my first time seeing him since the national championship game.
Give me one piece of advice or something that you would tell him then coming off that national title run.
Whatever he did last year, take it to another level.
How does he do that?
Just stay focused. Don't let the off the field distractions get in the way. Just stay focused on important things, school and football.
Ryan, this defense is going to try to take the next step up from the last 3 games where they were absolutely lights out. From the linebacking core perspective, what do you expect from them next year?
Oh, I think they're going to be great next year. A lot of those guys got experience. A lot of those guys played a lot last year, and I know that this year they're going to be lead the defense to being the top 5, top 10, or even the #1 defense in the country next year. Those guys all experience, and they almost have everybody coming back but a few people, so I know it's going to be great.
All right, thanks, guys, for the time. Kevin.
All right, Lisa, thank you very much. Getting ready for the fastest Buckeye competition to close out halftime here at the spring game 2015. Ezekiel Elliott going to line up.
Well, what a difference a year makes with Cardale Jones or Carlos Hyde leaving. Everybody was worried who was going to replace and fill his shoes. I think Ezekiel Elliott has done that admirably.
Yeah, that was a big question last year. Because you think about to 2013, Carlos Hyde really put the offense on his back and took it to a level with that tough running.
All right, so feel like, do we have to be hush at the start like a track meet?
It's looking pretty serious.
The fastest Buckeye competition. And Ezekiel Elliott bursting out of the gates, and it's a photo finish. It is a photo finish.
And still champion. Ezekiel
Still champion. From last year, they have given the nod to Ezekiel Elliott. He is your fastest Buckeye once more.
Well, what's unbelievable about Ezekiel Elliott, he's a track guy, and as a fan, as a player, I always was worried about track guys as running backs. They've got that great top-end speed, but do they possess the toughness? Do they possess the agility? Well, Ezekiel Elliott answered all those questions in spades last year, running between the tackles, great agility, and then that top-end speed to be able to finish off those long runs.
So Ezekiel Elliott receiving congratulations from his teammates. He is the fastest Buckeye. Halftime at the Scarlet and Gray Spring Game in Columbus continues on BTN. little bit of the Ohio State Marching Band rocking through the years here, halftime of the spring game, as we welcome you back on BTN. Our Lisa Byington standing by down on the field with one of the quarterbacks who we just saw, Troy Smith.
Yeah, Troy, how much fun did you have in that competition?
I had a lot of fun. Putting everything in perspective, I think the guy that was supposed to win it won it. Everybody wants to see the new and the young guy winning and still staying supreme, so I think the good guy won.
But throwing it 68 isn't bad.
It's pretty cool for a guy who sits in his office from 9 to 5. You know, Ohio State's a tremendous place to be. There's a lot of work that we have to do off the field, so being able to be here today with a free spring game ticket, that's all I came for.
All right, so honestly, did you practice for that or no?
No. They asked me to come. They told me when to show up. I showed up, and here I am.
If you had to pick a quarterback for next fall, putting you on the spot, who would it be?
Are you asking me what right now, or are you asking me if I had the chance to start off?
If you had all three healthy in the fall, who would Troy Smith pick?
The guy that has the majority of the reps right now, I would go with him. I would ride with him, so I guess I would be going with Cardale Jones.
Why is that?
As of right now, in the spring, pretty much the continuity is what it is. You don't want to rupture that. You don't want to mess it up. So he's been in there with the guys. JT's still coming off his injury from what I know, and Braxton's doing the same. So as long as these guys are still trying to find their way around, I think you should give it to the guy who's been with the guy.
Okay, fair enough. From your perspective, when you watched that roller coaster that was the quarterback situation last year, your reaction to what they were still able to accomplish?
Oh, tremendous. I'm glad I wasn't the one having to make the decision, because I don't know how the outcome would have came. Urban's doing a great job. I think we got the right guy for the job.
What does a national championship, another one, you played for one, fell a little bit short, but what does it mean to bring another title back to this school?
It means everything. Definitely biased when I say it. This is the greatest institution, the greatest university across the land. Anytime you get a chance to bring any type of camaraderie back to us, it means everything. It means a lot. Giving back to the fans of Columbus is everything.
All right, thank you so much for the time. Kevin, he's still got it.
Oh, there's no doubt he still has it. For a guy who sits at his office 9 to 5, as he says, not a bad display.
I got to disagree with Troy. He says everybody's rooting for the young guy. There's some of us rooting for the old guy. I want you to know that.
Well, I think a lot of guys are out here rooting for Troy Smith. And for a guy that sits in his office, 32 years old, his arm talent is really unequivocal for someone who really doesn't do a lot of throwing of the football.
Pretty impressive performance indeed. The halftime continuing here in Columbus at Ohio Stadium.
Hey, you guys.
Give you a little taste of more of the Ohio State Band before we step aside for another timeout with highlights straight ahead. The Gray leading the Scarlet 10-7 as we get ready to start the third quarter on BTN from Ohio Stadium. The band getting their final licks in here before we head back to a little spring football. Alongside Glenn Mason and Bobby Carpenter, I'm Kevin Kugler. Spring games are meant to see some new guys, perhaps get some of the final kinks out before you go into a long summer and then fall practice. But you knew what Cardale Jones had from last year, but only 3 games as a starter under his belt. How important has this spring performance been for Cardale Jones?
Well documented what Cardale Jones was miraculously able to accomplish last year, coming off the bench and leading the Buckeyes to a national championship. Now you fast forward, and he's got that playing experience in 3 games and the confidence. And with J.T. Barrett and Braxton Miller being sidelined, for all intents and purposes, he's taken all or most of the reps with the one. You just have to assume he's going to be that much more improved going into this season.
You've seen Cardale Jones almost exclusively as a passer, a couple of quarterback draws. But, Bobby, when you're looking at the defensive effort today from Ohio State, really all spring long, Have you seen signs that they're going to be able to pick up where they left off in the postseason?
I think you saw that here today with the defensive pressure that they were able to get up front with Joey Bosa, Adolphus Washington, being able to push the pocket, being able to try to collapse it in there, put some pressure on the quarterbacks. And then you saw the safety position step up and play pretty well today. And the young guy in Eric Smith showing that maybe I should be on the field a little bit as well.
Now, this defense, certainly a lot of expectations and a lot of success hinges on what this defense is going to be able to do over the course of the season. And Cardale Jones feeling like, from an offensive standpoint, been able to put some good things out there on the field so far. Some of the key players returning, and the first four, so important to have the core of your offensive line back. So big, Coach.
Well, again, I go back to last year going into spring practice. Big question mark. Taylor Decker was the only guy with experience that was coming back. And for them to come together and to perform the way they did is one thing, but what a luxury to have them returning intact for this year.
And I think when you look at that, everybody's focusing on this quarterback battle, the embarrassment of riches, if you will, at the skill position. But this team really began to get good when the offensive line took over. That Virginia Tech game, they did not play well. You saw J.T. Barrett struggle. The run game wasn't very effective with Ezekiel Elliott. You fast forward to Alabama. They were pushing the Alabama defensive line down the field, creating holes at the line of scrimmage. That opens up the running game, and then it in turn opens up the passing game.
Well, you think about the offensive line last year, and you think to the Virginia Tech game, which the offensive line did not play very well. I came in to do a game right after that last year and sat in Urban Meyer's offense, and we talked about the double eagle defense that Virginia Tech played that they weren't prepared for. He said, we're prepared now.
Lisa Byington is standing by down on the field with one of the three quarterbacks vying for that starting job, J.T. Barrett.
Yeah, I guess the first question, how healthy are you?
I'm coming back pretty well. Just taking it day by day. Not really rushing anything, but pretty close to being back to normal.
What's pretty close? I mean, what are you able to do?
Able to drop back and throw, being able to push off it a little bit, but not too crazy. Now I started running, doing build-ups and things like that, so it's coming along.
What did sitting out during that postseason run do to you?
It just got me a chance to lead from the sidelines, not really on the field like I was able to when I was playing, but being able to talk to guys on the sideline, just keep them going, encouraging them guys.
How do you describe the dynamic between the three quarterbacks? Urban Meyer keeps saying that you guys are remarkably very friendly and very encouraging with one another.
Definitely, because we want the best for this team. And whether it be myself, Braxton, or Cardale, it doesn't matter. We want the best for Ohio State.
What has impressed you about Cardale Jones and taking over the reins?
He's able to just be calm, knowing that he didn't have to do it by himself, you know, because a lot of times you feel like you get thrown in that position and you have to just all of a sudden make all these plays and things like that, but he didn't. He just stay within the offense and made plays from there.
Finally, JT, what is your personal goal come fall?
My goal is to make sure I'm in the position to be the starting quarterback at Ohio State.
Meaning your mindset has to be what during this whole period?
I think when it comes to the fall, it would be just, you know, make sure I'm doing whatever it takes to get the guys going as long as myself. Because, I mean, I think that's to play a factor in who's going to be the starter, not just who can play well, because I think we all individually can play well, but who can rally the guys.
You guys have made it interesting. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
All right, Kevin?
Well, he's certainly a guy who has shown an ability to lead this team. What he did last year after Braxton Miller's injury was remarkable. The numbers he put up, the leadership he showed. It is going to be an unbelievably tough decision, and how many coaches in college football would love to have those three guys to decide between? Not a bad choice for Urban Meyer.
Yeah, it's a lot better than not having any of those three guys. I can tell you that, but they're all very good. They're talented, and they're all saying the right things. Things will work out.
You'll have to see Cardale Jones back here just after the quarterback skills competition, throwing the ball down the field right away.
Cardale Jones,
you talked about those three quarterbacks, though. They're all good, but they're all different. You think of Braxton Miller, his ability to take a nothing play and turn it into a great play, a broken play. I think of J.T. Barrett as being the orchestra leader. He directs this offense awfully well. And then Cardale Jones, because his unique skill set, 6'5", 250 with a cannon for an arm, they're all different.
They're all different. The one thing that Urban Meyer loves to run is that zone read. And he had talked about how J.T. Barrett is the best out of all three. Maybe he's not the biggest guy, and he's not the fastest guy, but he does a great job making that option read. It's something that can be tough to teach. And Cardale, for as good as his running he is, he wasn't great at it. That's something that they eliminated from their package because he wasn't good at it down the stretch. Wanted him to be comfortable, and so they took that out. That's something that I believe that they'll want to reinstitute this season.
Cardale looking deep and just off the fingertips of Noah Brown.
Well, Bobby, you know, the zone read, that's just a different way of saying option football.
Yes, sir.
And being an all defensive player, you know that anytime an offense can effectively run option football in whatever shape form they can, that limits what you can do defensively from a blitz standpoint, from an alignment standpoint, and that's why Urban really likes that read package.
It does, because anytime you put in a blitz, a defense, you always have to have guys assigned for their option reads. So you can't get too exotic. You can't go out there and try to make plays all over the field. If guys aren't disciplined, those option runs will crease you down the middle for big, long gaining plays. So that's one thing I think that they like to use. Urban does it to keep defenses honest, and I'm sure that that's something that they've worked with Cardale in the spring to improve him in that if he wants to compete for this job come fall.
Nice little move by Briante Dunn on that last run to make the first man in the backfield miss. Dunn able to get positive yardage. Now a 3rd down and 6. Jones with lots of time, looking deep for Brown, and the jump ball is deflected away.
Trying to give his guy an opportunity. He's a young player, Noah Brown. Throw the ball down the field. He's a big physical guy. Let him give a chance to go up and get it. And he put it in a place where he thought only his guy could get it, but defender comes over, safety gets his hands on the football.
Malik Hooker, the freshman from Newcastle, Pennsylvania, in there to break that one up.
I am just amazed at the size of guys playing major college football. Offensive linemen, wide receivers, running backs, linebackers.
4th down and 6, and the pass is incomplete. And the Red Squad, the Scarlet team, will take over after a quick timeout. 10-7, Gray with the lead over Scarlet in Columbus.
King of the SEC has fallen. Wide to the 5 and to the goal line and into the end zone. Ohio State national champions for the 8th time.
Well, the championship trophy on display as a lot of folks getting their chance to take their pictures with it as we take a look at the AFCA coaches poll from the end of last season. Amway coaches poll and the coaches trophy. Let's check in downstairs with Lisa Byington.
Yeah, George Schroeder from USA Today, a college football and basketball writer. You got to be careful with that thing here, my friend. The Amway coaches trophy in your hand.
Absolutely. I joked about spinning it, but I don't think I'm going to.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's $30,000 waterproof crystal. I'm just going to hold it very carefully.
I think that's a great idea. So put in perspective, you see a lot of college football. Put in perspective the uniqueness to the Ohio State story last year.
Well, people thought they were a year away, that 2015 might be the year. And Braxton Miller goes down, and people thought, well, I don't know. They lose to Virginia Tech, and people think they're out of it. And the next thing you know, J.T. Barrett is fantastic. He's the 5th in the Heisman race. He goes down, and Cardale Jones comes up with, 3 games for the ages. They beat Wisconsin, Alabama, and Oregon to win the national title. I mean, it's the ultimate come-out-of-nowhere story. Given all the things that had transpired first.
Of course, the Amway coaches poll coming out, the first one in the preseason coming out in late July. Give us maybe a sneak peek of what we might see.
Well, the coaches will do the voting, but I think the consensus from everybody, and certainly in the Amway coaches poll, is going to be Ohio State at number 1. I think you can see TCU probably will be sitting at 2, and Alabama. You're going to see some of the usual suspects below that. USC is a team that people like, but Ohio State is the one that we can argue about everybody else. Nobody's going to argue about Ohio State at number 1.
Give me a few thoughts. The other Big Ten storylines is the new coaches who came into play here in the conference. A quick thought on Wisconsin's Paul Chryst.
Well, after some instability with Bielema leaving and then Gary Anderson heading to Oregon State, Paul Chryst, I think, is the perfect guy to come in and bring some stability to the program. Been there before. He understands what the program is all about, and he's a really good football coach in his own right.
Nebraska's Mike Riley.
He's done more with less his entire career. Now he's at a place where he's going to be asked to do more with more. But in their peer group, they maybe, which are the Ohio States and Michigans and Alabamas of the world, they maybe don't have quite as much. So he's going to be a guy who's asked to do more with less again. And I think it's a fascinating experiment and a really good fit.
Finally, of course, Michigan's Jim Harbaugh.
Well, first of all, great, quirky fun is about to come to the conference. He and I look forward to the rivalry with Ohio State. It's going to be a lot of fun, not necessarily for either coaching staff, I think, but he's going to get them back in a hurry.
All right, George, you have done a fantastic job. I'm going to have you handle my china and my crystal when I have some, of course. Hey, Kevin, I hear the guys upstairs might have a preseason poll of their own.
There are rumors that Bobby and Mace have been putting together top 10s in their own right, which, is it too early for the Glenn Mason top 10? I thought you had a statute of limitations on when you would actually have your top 10 out.
I can't wait for college football, and I knew that Schroeder was going to be here, and I know he was going to put his list out, and I was going to put the correct list out.
So there is the correct list.
I don't know about that, but I like Ohio State. I like Texas Christian, TCU, Gary Patterson down there, and Trayvon Boykin, and a lot of skilled players. I like LSU. Young team last year coming back. Love Michigan State, but Mark D'Antonio's done up there. And Alabama, I'm not sure they're going to be as good as they're going to be. In Florida State, they don't have Winston anymore, but they've got a lot of players. Baylor, they just seem to win like 10 games every year. Auburn, they got a quarterback, Jeremy Johnson, that's in there, and he's played already and done pretty good. And let's not forget about Southern Cal with Cody Kessler, great quarterback, got a little under the radar last year. And last but not least, the runner-up to the championship, Oregon without Mariota.
Well, now, Bobby Carpenter, this is your moment for a rebuttal. Do you have a rebuttal in your top 10, or is it going to be similar?
There's going to be some similar teams. It's going to be fluctuated around a little bit. Obviously, you got to like Ohio State at the top. I like TCU, and for the same reason I like Ohio State, I like Michigan State, I like returning quarterbacks. And that's a huge thing and to factor in. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have a great guy as the trigger man, you're going to struggle a little bit. Connor Cook at Michigan State coming back. Love to see him, big-time NFL prospect. Question I have about Michigan State, though, is they lose Pat Narduzzi. So when you're losing, your defensive coordinator's done a great job, takes the head job at Pitt. You wonder how you're going to be able to rebound from that. I don't think necessarily Alabama's going to be quite as good losing Blake Sims, but they'll always seem to step up. I like Notre Dame. They've got a little bit of a quarterback situation up there with Zaire and Golston of what they're going to do. Brian Kelly thinks great situation for him. He's got two guys with experience, but who's the guys that he's going to choose eventually?
Well, Brian Kelly made the statement this past week. He'd take his two quarterbacks over the Ohio State quarterbacks. Do you agree with that?
I don't know about that.
No, neither do I.
I'm always a fan of numbers. And, as a coach, you got to love the more guys you have that are good at a position, the better. You never know what can happen. That's him just defending his guys. They've got some talent up there in South Bend. And Zaire did a good job for him filling in for Golston at spots last year. I think Notre Dame is going to be a team that's going to be inside the top 10. And possibly, I don't know if they'll be able to challenge fully for that college football playoff spot, but I think they're going to be hovering around and be in the mix late in the season.
Well, I don't think he had to say that publicly, defending his guy. I think most people say what? Yeah.
Collier. Quick little toss and the completion inside the 10 and down near the 7-yard line. It's another catch for Jeff Green. We've seen a lot of Green. We've seen a lot of Joe Ramstetter on this drive. A couple of nice catches for Ramstetter as well.
Well, and those have been pretty nice balls thrown by Stephen Collier. Looks like he's settled in a little bit. They've got this up-tempo offense going, and you'll love to see him getting some pressure, not making a great decision right there because the defense has been applying a lot of pressure to him. And sometimes it's best as a young guy, Glenn, to just throw it in the stands.
And no doubt, especially throwing it a little short of out of bounds and the defensive guy picking it off and taking it 90 yards.
I believe the commissioner, a.k.a. the head coach, put a stop to that one and now has stopped the clock with 27 seconds to go in this third quarter.
Maybe you saw lightning out there or something. You get some of these awkward occurrences here when the head coach is calling the game.
There's certain things, Coach Mason, that you head coaches want to see in spring games, or certain situations you want to work on.
Well,
or certain things you don't want to see, like that interception.
You come to spring game and you always say, well, you guys are going to run the show. I'm just going to observe. and that only lasts about an hour. Then you get tired observing, you want to run the show again.
Tell you what, he was not happy observing that, a little fumbled snap there by Collier. And what's very interesting, you talk about the lack of depth on the offensive line. It appears that the graduate assistant, I think that's Jim Cordell down there, former Buckeye, played in the NFL for about 5 years, now back on the staff, giving some instruction in between plays to the offensive linemen, possibly directing them with what they need to do and who to block on each play.
Urban Meyer stopping the clock once more. It's been a running clock for this third quarter, save these last few seconds. Trying to break a tackle is Warren Ball. Down in the arms of Damon Webb. Also there, Eric Smith to help out.
Bobby, the challenge, for this program, Urban Meyer, right now. Think about last year, they had to prove everybody wrong. This year, the expectations are so high.
Oh, no question. As we move to the fourth quarter, 10-7 the lead for the Gray. And back to live action as Paris Campbell, with the clock at 0, takes it in for 6. So Paris Campbell gets a big hug from Urban Meyer. One more look at Paris Campbell.
Another one of those young wide receivers they were talking about, getting the ball on now what is a pass that counts as receiving yards for the quarterback and passing yards, but nothing more than really a little jet sweep style run, cuts it back, finds his way to the end zone. I know Urban Meyer's liking to see that.
Now the Scarlet takes the lead on that play. Will the Gray argue that it happened with no time on the clock at the end of the third quarter? They might gardening this next Friday if they lose this game.
They may argue, but I think it's going to fall on deaf ears.
Going to try the long kick now. This from 37 yards, and the kick is good. A little confidence for Sean Nurnberger. Going to back up and do another one from 47. His long last year was 49. And Bobby, you mentioned it earlier, some inconsistencies last year for Nurnberger, 13 of 20 as a field goal kicker.
Yeah, when you're below 70%, that's not something the coach is going to look fondly upon. And that's why Urban Meyer is a big proponent of going for it on fourth down as it is. And if they were outside the 25-yard line, you got a fourth and short, he's going for it virtually every time.
Good kick, though, a 47-yarder for Nurnberger. That one good as well. Lisa Byington is standing by with the brand new offensive coordinator of the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Ed Warner, you have more responsibility here on the sideline. How has that change been for you this year?
Well, it's been interesting because obviously not only do I have to deal with the offensive line, but I have to deal with the big picture of everybody. And what's going on in the secondary is more important to me now as I can call plays, how our personnel in this, at wide receiver, running back, who's getting touches. I have to be more involved in that thought process as we call plays. So I have to see more than just the 5 interior guys and how the defensive line is playing.
Thought process with these quarterbacks after this game is done would be what from now until fall camp?
Say that again.
I said the thought process for you in handling the quarterbacks would be what as you head into fall camp?
Again, we want them to continue to grow and develop. We have to get our quarterbacks better. They're making progress. So what we have to do is also call plays to the strength of the quarterback. So as we find and understand their strengths, which we have a good feel for, then we call plays around that. But those 3 guys just need to continue to get better at things they need to work at. And when they're all healthy, then we'll let them go compete. But there's plenty of work to be done.
You've worked with Tim Beck before at Kansas, and he's now handling these quarterbacks. What have you seen in terms of what he's added to that side?
Well, Tim's done a good job of developing a relationship with the quarterbacks, understanding who each guy is. I mean, he hasn't gotten to work with, Braxton quite as much because he hasn't been his full speed. But he's a great teacher, a great communicator. The guys have responded well to him. They like him, and they're just getting comfortable with him. And it's a process that takes time because there was a lot of trust there with Tom Herman. So that's beginning to develop, and I see it in the meetings. I see it in practice.
It's a positional question. You've been kind of experimenting with the H-back and the receivers. What have you liked about some of the pieces that you put into place at the H-back and receiver position?
Yeah, we have some great skill players. In that H-back, we moved Curtis Samuel there. So we've got some weapons at that position. Dontre didn't even go in the spring, so we're just seeing how they can be used in the system. How can we make plays with guys with speed? And we're pretty excited about that position. Just in general, the speed at wide receiver. But as you see, we're getting the ball to the H some in the throw game. We're also getting the ball to the H in the run game. And so there's some diversity there for that position. It's not just a wide receiver position.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Seniors getting their rings while the offensive coordinator chatted with Lisa Byington. Big moment for them to get their championship rings from last year. Still to come, don't forget Penn State and the blue-white game. That's coming up next, followed by the Illinois spring game at 6 p.m. Eastern, and then the Big Ten spring football report at 8 p.m. Eastern today on BTN and BTN to go.
You know, Lovell, one of the things that Ed Warner talked about there wasn't just the fact that he has to call plays and be responsible for the coverage, but it's the personnel packages now. When you have all these guys that you're trying to get on the field and get touches to, it's not just your classic one tight end, two receivers, two running backs. There's a variety of guys they're trying to utilize in different positions and different situations, and now he has to be cognizant of that as well, which, you know, can be a heavy burden at times.
Well, you know, you talk about practice organization. You segment it. A lot of times during practice, you'll have the offensive line working on inside run drill at one end of the field, and you'll have the quarterbacks and wide receivers working on the passing game at the other end. Well, Ed can't be both places. He's going to be with the offensive line in the run drills. He's going to have to rely on watching the film and getting the evaluation there and coming up to speed as far as the development of the offense by watching film.
Noah Brown with a nice break of the tackle. Gets down to the 45-yard line.
Noah Brown's been having a pretty nice day. You know, Urban Meyer had big expectations for him coming in today. He seemed to reach those so far.
Well, Lisa Byington is always near jewelry. And Lisa, you've got a lot of hardware down with you.
Well, I do, and you know what? I'm going to ask my handheld. This is live TV. Turn to your right for a second, because I got Curtis Grant right over here. And Curtis Grant is going to be our ring model. You want to hold this out, Curtis? Tell me about why you guys designed what you did here, and hold it out to the camera.
We thought it would be great just to represent all the past national championships and put the last one right there in the middle. And you know, it was just a great idea about all the scenes that we put together. We thought it'd be
I'll hold it for you.
We thought it'd be a great honor to everybody else and ourselves.
You got the 42 and 35 score for Alabama on one side, and then you got the Oregon score here on the other side. This is the first time you've held this. What's it mean here for you?
It means a lot. You know, I mean, it shows how much adversity we've overcome and how we stuck together as a team. And you know, that's why this ring means so much to us. It was like my class came in 2011, and we had to go through a lot of coaching changes, and you know, it was just great to see us overcome the adversity and help lead the team to a national championship.
Speaking with Curtis Grant, are you ready for that next step? Are you ready for the next level?
Most definitely. I'm just waiting on the phone call. I'm ready to take my talent to the next level.
All right, you know, I'm going to slide this ring on because, you know, a woman likes her jewelry. And Curtis, you're going to let me keep this, right?
No. I'm about to take that one with me.
Kevin, he's not going to let me keep it. You feel sorry for me?
I do. I've always felt sorry when you can't steal another man's jewelry. It's terrible.
Thank
you, Lisa. It is interesting when you look at the senior class of Ohio State, and they started off with that 6-win season, and they end as the winningest senior class in Ohio State football history. Now, this next senior class is likely going to remove that record, but for at least a year, I mean, just the progression that the seniors went through for Ohio State from that 6-win year to where they are at the end of their career as the winningest in history. Pretty impressive surge.
Well, they run the full gamut of emotions. You know, you go through the coaching change, the interim coach with Luke Fickell, losing in a Gator Bowl to Florida, going 6-7. Then the next year you go 12-0. But you can't play for anything. The following season in 2013, you're 12-0. You lose to Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game on a 4th and 1. You'll lose to Clemson in the Orange Bowl. The next year, okay, this is it. Braxton Miller gets hurts his shoulder, and now you feel like you're back at square one again. I give that senior class a ton of credit for being able to rebound and achieve what they did.
All the coaches around the country always talk about the importance of senior leadership. And Kevin, you talk about how they started out and where they finished out. Without that senior leadership, there's no way they could accomplish that.
The sack of Collier, and it's time now for the United States Marine Corps leader of the game, and it's Cardale Jones, 249 yards and a touchdown. But that interception a moment ago very costly. But Cardale Jones still no questioning his leadership. He's our United States Marine Corps leader of the game. And another guy who should be leading this team on the field come fall is Ezekiel Elliott. He's standing by with Lisa Byington.
Yeah, who's got a splint now on this wrist. You just got your cast taken off. How's it feeling here so far?
It's getting there. It's getting better and better every week. And now I just have 3 more weeks, so I'm clear.
You have not been able to participate, obviously, but how have you remained engaged here in the spring season?
You know, I got my little own practice regimen. For the beginning of practice, I go out there and work on my speed stuff and my drills, and then for the second half of practice, when we're doing team stuff, I just go, you know, coach the guys, take my mental reps.
You had arguably the best 3-game stretch in the postseason, perhaps maybe in school history. How does that motivate you for the year to come?
You know, I just got to thank my guys for going out there and playing with me. The O-line got better and better every week. In those last 3 games, they were just clicking, and no one can stop us.
It's a unique, actually, spring season. A lot of the starters are injured, like yourself. But what's the takeaway? What's maybe, if you put your finger on the mood of this team headed into fall season, what would it be?
We're hungry. We want more. We got a taste of it, and we want some more.
All right. Ezekiel Elliott, who is actually filming here today with his GoPro. A camera for a camera. Back to you.
Well, Lisa able to find any camera that's down there. And now Ezekiel Elliott has photographic memories of his conversation with Lisa Byington. 696 yards and 8 touchdowns in the postseason for Ezekiel Elliott, who at halftime won the fastest Buckeye contest for the second year.
Yeah, what he did last year with a bad wrist. You know, now you don't run with your wrist, but still, if you're injured, you're injured. Just trying to think what he'll be 100% this year.
He can only carry the ball in his right hand. And, you know, as a running back, when you're running to that left side, you have no ability to protect the football. It's exposed. Did a great job securing the football and not fumbling. And then you saw that speed. And for the stigma that there was on the Big Ten, can't run with the SEC. To watch Ezekiel Elliott rip off an 80-yard touchdown run at the end of that game, leaving Bama defenders in the dust, speaks volumes about his athleticism and top-end explosion.
Well, we were at dinner last night at Scioto Country Club. Had a great dinner.
Boy.
And some loyal Ohio State people, and someone there asked me the question, you know, what were you thinking doing the game at the Sugar Bowl against Alabama? And I said, you know, the first thing I thought, all I ever hear about is SEC speed, and I'm sitting there saying, Ohio State looks like a lot faster team than Alabama to me. So, you know, perception sometimes is more important than fact, but it's not accurate.
Absolutely, it's not. And this team has some of the best skill position players in the country, but it starts with that offensive line, and Zeke needed holes to get opened up. They were there, and then his legs did the rest.
All right, 4.5 minutes to go, and the Gray team taking over, trailing. And this is where the competitive aspect comes back into this game. We told you about the loser of this game. They're walking back to the Woody with all their equipment and everything amidst the fans after this game, while the rest of the team rides back in comfort. And then next Friday, the loser of this team is landscaping Buckeye Grove. That is good, hard physical labor that goes on at Buckeye Grove, and the losing squad will be doing that next Friday.
Kugler, you're on the Gray team. This means either you walk to the airport or you get a ride.
And there's a deep ball and a touchdown for Corey Smith. Still time for the Scarlet squad, but the Gray back on top. The deep ball from Jones to Smith.
There's Corey Smith again. You see Cardale Jones buying some time outside of the pocket. Corey Smith using that athleticism, the 5th-year senior from out of Akron. Long road to get here, making plays today. I know that's refreshing for Urban Meyer from a guy who's been inconsistent at times throughout his program.
6 catches, 174 yards, and 2 touchdowns today for Corey Smith. Now, can you translate spring stardom into fall success? That'll be the next challenge.
Well, that's for real. This might be a spring game, but it's still practice, and anybody will tell you there's a big difference between practice and games.
Absolutely. You always see some spring game stars, but the one thing that's refreshing about Corey Smith, he was a receiver that struggled in the Virginia Tech game, made some dynamic plays on the special teams in those last 3 games. Now you see him putting together a little offensive package for the coaches, because there's a lot of receivers that want to get that spot vacated by Devin Smith and the other one by Evan Spencer, and they need to show a little bit today to get that leg up for fall.
You bring up a big name there, Evan Spencer. Early in last year, I asked Urban Meyer when I was in doing a game, because I had recruited Evan's dad, Tim Spencer, to Ohio State. I said, tell me about Evan Spencer. He looked at me and said, he's their MVP. I mean, this is early in the year. I said, what do you mean? He says, no one gives us better leadership than that young guy. Is there somebody that can replicate that type of leadership this year?
It's going to be tough, and that's something that can't easily be developed. He kind of did it all. He's a great blocking receiver, great possession guy, good on special teams, and then you saw him, I believe, against Alabama secure that last onside kick. And that's coming from a guy who was a senior who'd been through those ups and downs, the highs and lows. And it's tough to replicate those experiences, to being at the bottom, being on a 6-6 squad. It makes it a little bit better when you're sitting at the top, and those wins mean that much more.
1:50 to go as the Scarlet team takes over. And incomplete.
During our
you mentioned the recruiting class and a lot of youngsters that'll be joining this program. 27 total recruits, 12 from Ohio, 15 from out of state. A couple of quarterbacks to add to the mix, but not a good year to be a true freshman and get a chance to play quarterback at Ohio State with that quarterback dilemma. And a nice split, 14 on offense, 13 on defense.
You know, recruiting is the lifeblood of college football. And any coach will tell you, you're a lot better coach when you have great players. And Urban Meyer is going and getting the best players in the state, the best players in the Midwest, and then cherry-picking guys from around the country.
What a play on either side. You had Darius Slade, who provides the big hit, but Stephen Collier stayed in, Coach, and he found Jeff Green deep downfield.
Well, that's a positive. When they look at that film and they see Collier sitting there, and he's not taking his eyes off the downfield, worrying about the rush, they'll say that's what you have to do. You have to make throws like that in the Big Ten.
And then it's great to see Jeff Green go up and use his size and athleticism over top of a smaller defensive back and go track the ball through the air and come down with the catch.
Now Collier on first down with time winding down and the pass incomplete. We'll see if Urban Meyer allows the clock to stop, and he will. He will stop the clock with 30 seconds to go. Again, this is where the competition comes in the spring game. We've talked about the stakes, and now things are getting a little real.
And I would venture to say I don't think you'll see a field goal for a tie.
No, I don't think so. Something tells me the head coach will not call on the field goal team to tie this one up.
But this is good situational football for Stephen Collier. This guy hasn't played a lot. Now you're in an end-of-game situation. You're sitting on the 25-yard line with 30 seconds left and a 2nd and 10. Can you find a way to get your team into the end zone?
Here you are against Penn State last year.
Absolutely.
I mean, you score, you win the game, you win the national championship. If you don't, you're an also-ran.
Incomplete. Clock continuing to run. Under 20 seconds to go, and now Urban Meyer will stop it with 18 seconds on the clock.
I mean, as an offensive player, you have to be incredibly frustrated that the ball doesn't stop on an incompletion. Defensively, you're loving this right now. But as a quarterback, you think the worst thing I can do is throw a pick. So an incompletion at least lets me line up and throw it again, but they just keep running time off the clock.
On third down, Collier hit again, and the pass incomplete. That pass rush, no coincidence, ramping up a little bit, and the clock still running down to 8 seconds before Urban Meyer stops it.
Here's the game.
Right here. Here's next Friday's schedule for one of these two teams. Will you be landscaping or relaxing next Friday?
As Glenn knows all too well, listen, you don't get too many great days here in the spring. You want to make sure you're enjoying them as a student, not over there in the labor camp.
Fourth down. Last chance for Collier into the end zone, and it's incomplete. And that ends the Scarlets' hopes. Final thoughts briefly, gentlemen, on this one.
Well, I go back to what Bobby's been saying. There is a lot of talent on this football team. Everybody's picking this team to be the odds-on favorite to win the national championship for good reason.
You like the way Noah Brown stepped up today. Some of those young receivers making plays, young defensive linemen making impacts. They're going to need to continue this progress through the summer into the fall.
An impressive day today on both sides. Some spring stars developing as well as Corey Smith, 6 catches, 174 yards, and 2 touchdowns, leading the way. And a beautiful day comes to a close in Columbus, Ohio. The Gray defeats the Scarlet 17-14. Lisa Byington is standing by with the head coach, Urban Meyer.
How has this team gotten better this spring?
Oh, there's individuals got better. As a team, we have not gotten better. We've just had too many injuries apart, and as a team, we haven't got better. But some individuals, there's guys that, like Gary Conley and Noah Brown. You saw guys today, they're going to probably, and Chase Ferris penciled in the start for us.
So the quarterbacks are obviously a big story for you guys. Take me through maybe your off season. What are you going to go through mentally to kind of prepare for the fall that is to come and making a big decision?
Oh, I'm not giving that a lot of thought. I wanted to get through spring practice and see Cardell was not as sharp as he has been all spring. As far as he had some open guys misfired. But we're going to take it day by day, and this will be one of the unique stories in college football. Is how do you handle these three quarterbacks, and it's going to be day by day.
Wanted to ask you, how tough of a decision will this be for you in your coaching career to make come fall?
Oh, this will be terrible. This will be. It's all good. It's the terrible thing is going to be. I admire all three of those guys, and you can name. It's not just a one-game wonder. Cardell's done it for 3 games. JT did it for a whole season. Braxton's had 2 good years. It's going to be a tough deal.
All right, Urban, thank you, as always. Back to you.
See ya.
All right, Lisa, a beautiful day in Columbus, Ohio, and still questions to be answered come the fall for Ohio State. Once again, the final score, the Gray defeating the Scarlet 17-14. Coming up next on BTN, it's Penn State spring football. The proceeding has been an exclusive presentation of the Big Ten Network. Enjoy the rest of the day of spring football on BTN. For Glenn Mason, Bobby Carpenter, and Lisa Byington, I'm Kevin Kugler saying so long from Columbus, Ohio.